So your premise is banning abortion is a good thing? Yeah.
Of course, it's a very good thing because we will become a more just society
How do you figure?
because we'll not be offing our own children.
So you're the only way that you can say that it's an actual child. So do you support child support starting at conception?
I don't know. Do I support that? Yeah, that's a good idea because it's true.
And you think that people should, so like how do you, I guess, so it takes two to tango, right? So how do you
Sure.
plan on enforcing like men to take care of their children?
Yeah, I've got some different ideas. One of which would be to ban something like no fault divorce so that men can't just leave their wives and let them fend for their own. I believe that, if you are able to somehow leave your wife, that you should be paying child support from the point that we know the child exists, which is at conception. But as soon as you find out, yeah, you got to pay child support. And any sort of governmental program that is put in place to help mothers and their children. For those mothers that need the help, let's start distributing those payments and those resources as soon as possible. So those are three ideas right there, how we can make the situation better for mothers and promote a culture of life.
Which are all financially based, but raising a child.
Well, the resources could be outside of finances, but sure.
Most
and
the
no
ones
fault.
that you just
Sorry,
mentioned.
one more point. I know I just interrupted you again, but one more point. The no fault divorce is, yeah, that's tied to financial means. However, there's something greater there as well. Having a father around does help both the wife and the child when it's born.
Not always at all.
No, actually, it does. It does. The data shows that having a father at home decreases your chance of being involved in violent crime. It increases your chance to go to college. It actually does tremendous things for kids just having simply a dad around.
Having an involved father, maybe.
Yeah, having a dad around. That's what the data shows. Having a dad there, yes. Just having a dad there. That's what the data shows. Yes.
What data is that? Like what?
I have it in my Discord server. I don't have a big binder with me right now, but that's what it says. If you have something that suggests otherwise, I'd be happy to look at it. But
I do have it. Well, I'm a social worker, basically, is what I do.
So you believe that not having a father around actually could potentially be more beneficial than having a father around?
Yeah, I do. I think it's individually. I think there's an individual. Yeah, absolutely.
So what's your abortion argument?
I do not believe that that it's a human being starting at conception, and I think that the only basis that you have on that is religiously. Do you
think that's the only basis I have on that? Have I even mentioned the great institution that is the Catholic Church yet?
So
I haven't even mentioned religion.
So by your same argument, then the Catholic Church is a great institution. Is that what you said?
Sorry, I missed. It's the greatest institution the world has ever seen. But we're not talking about that. I'm just pointing out that that's the first time in this entire live that I've even mentioned religion. And religion's an important part of everybody's lives, and I believe strongly in defending the faith. But I haven't even mentioned religion this whole live. So for you to say that,
so you're basing your argument off of a moral compass.
No, I'm sure. If whatever that means, sure.
Okay, well, your moral compass says that that's a baby, that it's a life, right?
No, that's not true. That's not true. Foundational to this argument is using the sciences, the hard sciences, and we know that human life begins at conception.
How do you know that? Like, where's the science behind that?
Because at conception, a unique individual human organism comes into existence.
So, what do you? What's your argument on ending the life of someone who is on life support?
What is my argument for what? To end their life or to keep them alive?
Yeah. Do you believe it's okay to pull the plug?
I believe strongly in human dignity, so I would say keep people alive as long as we can. But if you're, for example, brain dead and you literally have no future, like if we just leave you alone for 10 months, you were going to die. Well, that's a different situation. You can.
How is that a different situation? Because the organism that you're talking about would not be able to sustain outside of the mother.
So if somebody is brain dead, right, meaning that they're dead and they're not going to come back, that's the basic model, right?
So at what age?
That means that they're not going to have. Hold on. That means that they're not going to have a future, right? So that is a different situation from a young human being who is developing, who has their whole life ahead of them, right?
No, because that means that they're not able to have a future that is without being supported by like a medical.
Okay, so somebody who is brain
They have a
dead,
future.
right? Meaning
They
that
can live there.
they are essentially dead. There's nothing we
Mhm.
can do to save their life. But a human being who is alive and is developing, and if we just let them go through with a natural process, which is the development in gestation, they are going to have a
So
life.
along that line
It is fundamentally different.
conversation, are there any instances in which you would say an abortion would be fine?
The medical exception. So in the case of self-defense.
Okay, what about rape exception?
You can't say that on TikTok, and if you say it again, I just have to drop you because they will.
You're right. I'm sorry.
It's
My bad. Yeah,
it's okay. I do not give that exception. No.
Why?
Because that still doesn't justify ending the life of another human being. If justice is to give to, well, let me explain what justice is. Maybe it'll make more sense to you. If justice is to give to somebody what they are owed, you are not owed losing your life because what happened to your mother. That doesn't make any sense.
So you are also not owed losing your life because you were impregnated by someone else.
Nobody's saying that a woman should lose her life because she was impregnated by somebody she did not want to have that act with. I didn't say that. Kay didn't say that. We have never said that, and we never will say that because that doesn't make any sense.
Can I finish a statement? If the reason why I'm saying this is because when you deal with people who have been that word, there are so many things that happen to them mentally that severely impacts their life. So what about their life? What about the life?
Let's do everything we can to help them. Let's do everything we can to help them.
There are some people who don't possess resiliency skills that allow them to be helped. So why
do you see abortion as a solution to that issue?
I don't believe that conception is when life begins.
I get that. That's just incorrect. But in the case of less than 1% of situations where women get pregnant and then have an abortion because they were SA'd, you see the solution to those cases as abortion. How does that work? You get SA'd, you're going through some mental issues, understandably, right? It's a disgusting thing to do. Sex is a very important part of society. To violate a woman in that way is terrible.
So one thing you need to understand
how is that? Hold on. How is abortion a solution to that? What does that solve?
And the reason why I'm saying that is because one thing that you need to understand is that violation is not about sex. It's about power. And so when someone is rendered powerless in that way, it absolutely fundamentally shakes them to the core. And so you cannot tell me. But this is the thing, is that you don't understand because you've never been through it. And so
have you been? Well, I'm not going to ask you that. Don't answer that. But I can understand to some extent without personally experiencing something.
And so this is where I feel like that your opinions, and there is just as much research to say, scientific research to say, that life does not begin at conception as there is that it does. No,
there is not. There is not. That is a falsehood. Send it my way. I'm happy to look at it. Also, you are standing on the backs of less than 1% of the cases of people who have been SA'd, and you're trying to justify the pro-choice stance. It's very disgusting. Right? I understand these are tough situations. I want to do everything we can for these women.
I don't understand why we can't have a discussion without you, personally attacking.
Right. So you're not actually producing a good argument. Sorry, Kay. Let me just I'll make this statement, and I'll stop. You're not actually producing a good argument. You're trying to justify the slaughter of children on the backs of people who have been SA'd. It's quite disgusting. So I'm just being honest with you. I don't do things like that. So that's what you're doing.
What do you mean you don't do things like what?
Where's the where's the scientific source that says that life doesn't begin at conception?
Because right now, well, if you're talking about as far as scientifically goes, how many medical doctors support, medical having women being able to choose how many medical versus not. It is. I mean, because you cannot say that life begins at conception. There is no brain activity. So if you're going to say that someone who is brain dead, you can pull the plug on, then when does the brain develop in a fetus?
Where's the source?
I just asked you. There's a million sources.
Give me one.
When does the brain develop? Do you want me to look it up for
Here's
you?
my radical claim. Where's the claim found in the literature or in scientific knowledge? It's out there.
Yeah, I just
Three and
want
a
you to.
half weeks
I
after
just want you to know
conception.
the source.
Somebody put 3.5 weeks after conception, the brain is fully formed.
That's
That
not
is
what we're
not
talking
true.
about. Now we're talking about. You are making the
No,
claim that human
that's
life
not
does
what.
not begin at
That's not true.
conception, and that's what
That's
we
not
are
true.
contending with currently.
Yeah, yeah. But where's the source? Where's the scientific source that says that human life does not begin at conception?
Where's the scientific source that says that it does?
Sure, we can give you some from the NIH and Princeton and so on and so forth.
The
Where's
NIH,
yours?
the National Institute of Health, it says that life begins at conception.
That's correct.
Really?
Yep, that's what
It
it
says those
says.
exact words. Life begins at conception in the what's the NIH? The National Institute of Health in Pennsylvania. It says
The
life.
NIH is the National
My
Institute
stance
of
is
Health. Correct.
that it is a moral argument. This is a moral argument. When life begins, you get to decide for yourself morally, and your moral compass.
No, that's not. That doesn't make any sense. What you just
get to
said.
decide when life begins. You get to decide that when life begins.
I
That's
get to
wild.
decide whether or not I want to have a child. I get.
So
Okay,
I
let me
get
just be
fine.
clear. So you don't have a source, just to be clear. And
No,
then the other point that you made was about brain activity.
Yeah. When does it begin? When does brain activity fully formed? So that you would be able
Well,
to.
when it's
So-
fully
I
formed
actually
when you're
don't even care.
25.
Yeah, it
Right,
doesn't fully form
26
until
actually.
25. So we start to see neural progenitor cells as early as what is it, James? I think it's a few weeks after conception, like a couple weeks
I
after
was going to say like
conception.
4 or 5,
we start to
but
cells.
somewhere around there.
Yep, and then they divide into neurons and glia, which are the two types of cells that form the basis of our nervous system. And we see this happening it's typically around the 9th week of pregnancy. You start to see, you can actually like visibly see the brain.
Yeah, that's when you have
as
your
like a small
distinguishable.
I know. I
brain
said when is
parts,
it
yep.
fully formed? When is the brain fully formed? Is what I said.
25 years old.
So the National Institute of Health, I've got it pulled up. Tell me where
Yeah.
I can find that it says life begins at conception.
Oh yeah, let me pull up that source for you real quick. Let's see here. The title is called The Scientific Consensus on When a Human Life Begins.
And what?
Peer-reviewed
Where's
journals on biological sciences literature, and they give a biological view that human life begins at fertilization.
I googled it. I don't see that coming up. It's called. What's the name of the research?
Type in the scientific consensus on when a human life begins.
And is
You've
this
never
real?
heard of this?
No. And I work with doctors every single day, and they all believe. And also the law also says that life begins when the first breath is taken. Because if you have a
Law
child,
doesn't say that.
yes, it does.
The
Because
law
if
does
you
not say
have
life begins when the first breath is taken. That is incorrect.
it
Show
is
me
not
in
considered
the
murder.
United States laws where it
unless the
says
baby
life
has-
begins when you take your first breath. That's stupid.
There is many case precedents that it is not considered murder unless the baby took a breath.
That's actually not
That
true
is-
either.
Yes,
That's not
it
true
is.
either, because we will
That
try
could be.
you in the United States of America for double homicide if you stab a mother to unalive. So
If
that's
you-
not actually the precedent either.
If it,
And the
if-
courts have, well, we're seeing some different things in Alabama and in other states, but at the Supreme Court level, they actually haven't really answered the question as to legal protections for unborn before a certain week. Obviously, we've had the Dobbs decision, so things went back to the states, but they haven't really given a solidified answer as to whether or not we should protect individuals in the womb before a certain point. However, they didn't try to answer the question, when does human life begin? That was not the issue of any of these cases. Recently
they
covered
didn't
in
know,
Alabama,
they
though.
did, but they did say that if a baby has not taken, it was born or was like, say, was a woman gives birth like in a bathroom or something like that, and they can prove that the baby never took a full breath, it is not considered murder. It's true.
According to who?
According to the legal standings, yes, it is. It's absolutely true.
What?
According to the legal precedent, is that if a woman like suffers a miscarriage
This is unreal.
or goes in, it's true. Look it up.
You tell us
I'm not
what
gonna look
what
it up.
state
not
are you talking about where they did this? They didn't do it at the federal
Oregon.
level. So what are you talking about?
It isn't on a federal level, but in Oregon. Well, and I'm not even sure that it's not on a federal level. I'd have to look at that. But I know that that's the case in Oregon.
Give us any sources for anything that you haven't given any sources so far.
So
Give
I'm
us
looking
any
this
source
up
for
on the National Institute of Health, which is and that what you told me to look up does not come up. That's not a real thing.
Well, that's funny because everybody. Well, okay. What did you look up, by the way?
You gave me the exact name of the thing, the scientific consensus of when a human life begins, and it does not exist on the National Institute of Health.
Wait, what did you type in Google?
I didn't. I typed in the National Institute of Health search bar the scientific consensus on when a human life begins.
Go on Google. Go on Google and type
why
in
wouldn't
Google
it come up on their website?
Scientific consensus.
So that tells me that it's
Google.
not from the NIH then. If that research paper
Bro,
is
Okay,
not
can I ask you
there.
just
Go
let's
on Google. What's
Why
wrong
would
with
I
this
go
lady?
on-
Just go on
let me ask her a
Google
few
and
more-
type the scientific consensus.
Okay, but you're telling me that it's not
Rocky,
in
let me just ask you a few more questions that maybe might evoke your common
the
sense if you have
National
any.
Institute of
And we'll
Health.
see if this is logical.
It's a
Your
reputable-
stance on when human life
Can I
begins.
finish? Can
And
we
then we'll move on
finish-
because I have people in the guest box. Okay, so
Can I just finish the last
do you believe?
conversation?
Let me just ask you this question: the human zygote, right? You know, when
It's a zygote,
you're conceived,
yes.
yeah, you're a human zygote.
Not a baby.
Is that thing of the human species? Is the zygote of the human species that comes from a male and a
potential to
female
be.
human?
It has potential to be.
Oh, so the human zygote is not of the human species. It has the potential to be. Is the zygote alive?
Not independently.
Not independently, but is it alive?
Not independently. It's like,
Is it? I'm asking you a simple question: yes or no? Is the human zygote alive?
I guess it depends on your
Wait, did you
definition
lie
of
to
alive.
me? Did you lie to
Like-
me, Crucky? Because I just
What?
looked it up on the NIH and it's right here. Second link.
You looked it up on the what?
I looked it up on the NIH. It's right here. Second link.
Mm,
Just type in the search bar when does human life begin. Second link is going to say scientific consensus on when the human life begins. And there's a whole list of other studies that say the same thing.
I don't see that on the National Institute of Health.
Oh, no, she's definitely lying. She's
not
definitely
lying.
lying. There's
Why
no
would
way
I
about it.
lie?
Okay,
Yes, you
okay.
are.
If it's cool with you, man, let's move on because we got people in the box. And
Okay.
Crocky, thank you for
Yeah.
coming up. I appreciate it. When you are saying things like the human zygote is not of the human species, when you're saying things that, or when you're saying that a human zygote is not alive, when you can't be honest when you're looking things up, probably can't have a great conversation. So we'll move on to somebody else.
Yep. Don't be dishonest, man. It's not a good look.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Doing all right. How you doing?
I'm good. What do you have to say, man?
I just had a few things.
Sure.
Hypothetical here. So you believe life begins at conception when the
Yes, I know
egg and sperm join?
Yep, when the egg is fertilized. Yep.
Okay. So as soon as those join, that's a human?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what about when they're independent? What does that
Those
mean?
would not be human entities.
Okay.
Those would
weren't you
come
just
from a
arguing
human,
that
but
they
they wouldn't
were?
be unique individual human organisms.
Weren't you just saying that those were human, the human zygotes?
A human zygote is a unique individual human organism with a full genetic code.
Okay. So here's a hypothetical for you.
Sure.
And you probably heard something close to this before. I'm going to put a little
Maybe.
spin on it. So say there's a house fire, right?
Okay.
Trapped inside this house fire do you have a mom still?
I do. I have a
Okay.
very great mom.
Okay, that's good to hear. So
Question.
say,
You're
What's
actually
that?
about to ask this? Are you actually about to ask this question in all seriousness?
yeah, I'm talking to
You don't
Jake.
think you don't think we've heard this
I'm
question?
talking to
Would
Jake.
you
I,
rather
I,
save
I said you
embryos
probably heard
or
this
the
before.
5-year-old kid?
Listen, Kate. All right, here's a hypothetical.
Are you
Say
actually
your
going to ask
mom
this
is
question?
inside. Kay, be quiet. I'm trying to talk. Say your mom is in this house fire, and also in there is a sperm cell and an egg cell. During the fire, it collapses, and the sperm cell and egg cell, by just an insane a random chance, join together. Which one are you going to save?
My mother.
And why is that?
Between a human being that I don't know and my mother, I'm probably going to save my mother. Yes.
Okay, so you fell right into my next question. Why do you care so much about children that you don't care about, apparently?
Well, I do care about children. I believe in caring about all of our children in our society because we are a political community. We all have to live together. And the future of all these children, even if I'm never going to get to meet them, even if I'm never going to, get to play a game with them, their lives do matter, and it has an impact on the entire political community. And if we're just going to slaughter them for no good reason, as a man, I'm going to step up and say, no, we're not going to do that. That's not just to do. That's not good to do. And that's not good for us as a people to slaughter our own people. So that is why I care.
So then why don't you save the joined sperm cell and egg cell from the fire?
Because I love my mother. I would save my mother. I would give my life up for my mother.
That doesn't mean that.
But you claim that you care about these children and you want to see them.
I just explained how I do care about the children.
Okay, I'm talking.
So,
Listen.
No. I'm gonna talk because you're making a lot of dumb points. Okay. So number one,
you care more about
the question that you're asking is a question about value. Okay. Which has absolutely no bearing on whether or not other people get to live. I might value my dog more than James. James might value his mother more than your mother or you. That doesn't mean that you don't get a right to live because he values somebody more than the other. So it's a silly question. Do you have an argument for abortion?
Yeah, I didn't hear the same thing you just heard. So James, you care more about
an argument. I'll ask it again. Do you have an argument for abortion? If not, we're going to move on to the next guest.
Okay, I'm not coming here to talk to you. Can I talk to James?
Give the argument or next guest.
What do you think I was just doing, Kay, before you started interrupting me? Will you listen?
That wasn't an argument. That was a line of questioning.
Yeah, which is leading to something. Did you know that? Hey, you ever been in a debate before, bud?
No, I've never been in a debate before.
Do you have an argument? Can tell. So shut up and listen.
Do you have an argument?
All right, man. Let's be nice. Juab the Saint.
All right. I just want to say, James, you got the rosiest little cheeks I've seen.
Bro,
that's kind of a weird thing to tell another guy.
Get him gone, bro. Get him gone. Next guest.
All right, we'll talk to Alicia next. Guys, if you're not in the Discord server, please join. I would appreciate that greatly. It's a great way to support this platform, but also to engage with Kay and I and some of our other friends, including Honey, who is linked in my link tree as well. Alicia, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You got cheeks, man. All right.
Alicia, what do you have to say?
Well, me personally, I just feel like you shouldn't really be saying that we should all, like, the entire US should ban abortion, because even if you disagree with abortion, that doesn't mean you should take that right away from other women, because there are so many different circumstances, there are so many different situations in life that you might not be experiencing, but that doesn't mean you should take that right away completely.
You say it's a right. Why do you say that?
Well, because there are so many different things that could happen to a woman where she wouldn't want to conceive a child.
So it is a right to off your own kid because you may not want to conceive a child. That doesn't really follow logically, because I'm not saying that you are forced to create children. I'm simply saying that once the children are created, don't off them.
Well, technically you're not really killing a child. I feel like you've had this conversation so
technically
many times.
You are. If we're going to be all technical about it, right? If we're going to be real and live in the real world, we are. Let's not lie. Let's not say things that don't make any sense. Of course, it's a human. Of course, it's a child because it has a mother and father, and it's a very young human, so it's okay to call it a child.
Okay, but regardless of that, why do you feel like you should take that away from other people, even if you don't agree with it? Even if you think that it's killing a baby, other people may not think that.
Right. So what I see happening here is I see innocent humans losing their lives, and I don't like that. Because I live with you, and I live with all of these women, and I don't like the fact that they're offing their own kids. Furthermore, I want to protect those kids because I have an interest to do so, because I live with them too. They're a part of our political community. They're a part of our society, and they deserve protections. They're human beings, man.
Well, not yet.
Well, yes, yet. Yes, now. And yes, they are human beings from the point they are conceived. Do you have something to justify that? Or not justify, but rather prove to me that they're not human beings from the point of conception?
Well, no, not necessarily. But
Okay.
that's not even what I'm really talking about. Is what I'm saying is just there are so many different situations where a woman may not be able to give birth to that child, and just because you may not
Sure.
agree with what's going, like, you may not agree with how they're going about that, doesn't mean that you should just take
Yeah,
that
I give the
away
medical
from her.
exception. So if a fetus, or sorry, if a zygote, it travels and it buries itself into the fallopian tube, tragically, I believe we should treat that. I mean, that's not technically abortion, but yeah, that would be a medical exception. Trin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. What do you have to say?
Okay, sorry if you hear my kid's white noise. I'm in his bedroom. But I did have
Yeah,
a few questions for you guys.
sure.
So, when I don't know who it was, but the person you guys were arguing with earlier,
Sure.
and you were talking about, unaliving them while they're under. Like, what do you guys think about, like, pulling the plug on somebody?
Is the person have no
Like, let's
future
say
ahead of them?
let's say they're brain dead.
Yeah, that's fine.
But
They have no
isn't
future.
that, I mean, they could.
Well, they don't. If
But
they
they
did, then
could.
there would be a different situation. But if you are
Well,
brain dead, you are not coming back, then you have no future. That is much
see, I
different
feel
than a
like,
child that just started its journey.
I don't know, I feel like those, like, because, like, pregnancy, I was pregnant, obviously,
Sure.
but it's like, you never know. Like, this, like, you never know anything, Like, you can't ever be certain. So it's like,
So I want to make sure I understand where you're going with this. It's justifiable to off your own kid because it's justifiable to pull the cord on somebody who is brain dead,
I'm
which
saying,
is
like, fetus. Like, I
you do
think,
understand that the fetus is not dead, right? The fetus is alive and it's growing and it's self-directing its own development and it has its own unique genetic code. It's a
see,
early stage human being.
I don't know, but that's the same for, like, I don't know. But I feel
What do you mean
like,
you don't know? Do you
I
agree
think
with
it
what I just said?
depends. Yes and no. Like,
Sure.
I say that I'm pro-choice just because, like, you don't ever know anybody's, like, situation, and I feel like with a lot of
Why do their
laws,
situations matter? When we're
because
talking about this political issue, which is to off a human being in our society for assuming some reason you think is good, I think that there aren't really no good reasons. Why does it matter what your situation is? What situation could provide ample justification to create this political violence you are advocating for?
I think if you're in danger, or, like, I see, like, those, I guess, memes, kind of, it's like, I don't know if you guys have seen them, but, like, a lot of people on TikTok, like, back when this first started, they would ask, like, their husbands and, like, partners, like, oh, if one of us, like, if, let's say, you're pregnant and, like, you're very pregnant, well, obviously not you because you're a man, but let's say your wife or girlfriend's, like, very pregnant, and they're like, oh, would you choose, like, who would you choose to save?
So between what?
Like, if your wife needs saving or your kid, like, the pregnancy needs saving, and
If I
you
had to
could,
choose one or the other,
yes,
I guess I would talk to my wife and see what decision we should make as a family.
but that's, like,
Children are very important. It wouldn't be an easy decision when you're dealing with two human lives that you
exactly,
love deeply.
and I feel like with the abortion laws, the only scary thing is if they ban it, I feel like a lot of states will say no to absolutely everything.
Not true. Not true. Every state currently in our union that has abortion restrictions gives medical exceptions for medical necessities
See,
that
but
may
there
occur.
has been, obviously not a lot of cases, but there has been cases where women have had miscarriages and they've gotten in trouble with this, or
Okay.
like things like that. And it's like, obviously not everybody is in that situation, but it's sad to see some, like, it's all or nothing, if that makes any sense.
Okay. 63 million children lost their lives during Roe v. Wade. I'm looking for some ample justification here maybe some useful political speech that we can actually engage on as to why we should allow people to continue doing this heinous act. 63 million people during Roe v. Wade lost their lives. This is a slaughter. Okay,
but,
and
like,
you're
why do
trying
you
to
care?
justify this by saying, you know what, there might
I
be
could
some
be the
problematic
typical-
issues here in
I could be
implementation.
the typical, like, pro-choicer of, oh, why does it matter to you?
Why does this matter to me?
Yes.
For the reason I just gave you, that people are losing their lives, and we live in a political community, and I care about the lives of the people in my community. It's important to me that we work towards a perfect union. And what is that perfect union? Well, it's a society that's more good. It's a society that's more just. And a society that works for all of us towards that common good. And you cannot work towards a common good if you're offing your own people.
Like Amanda says here, she says first trimesters don't have brain activity.
I understand that brain activity comes later after the point of conception. I agree. But the thing is alive and it's a human being. That's what I care about.
But shouldn't it be adjustable in the first trimester since there's no brain activity?
Why? Why should it be justifiable to off a human being because they have just started their journey in their development and they have yet to form a brain?
Because it's your body.
Well, that's not your body. That is a separate human being.
Okay, but it's in your body. How about that?
Okay, sure. And why does that matter to me? Why does that justify what you're saying?
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes, I think so.
No, I asked you a question. How does that justify your stance? Okay, it's in your body. Okay, you have to sustain your child's life. And? What's so bad about that?
I don't know. I guess because you can. Like,
because you can?
My body, my choice.
You want us to slaughter
really
children just because you can. You don't have a good reason. You can't say that is actually a good thing to do, but you want to do it. You can't justify it.
I don't think anybody wants to have miscarriages, but a lot of people don't want to have kids in this environment.
We're not talking about miscarriages. We're talking about abortions, which is the decision you make.
Okay,
you make the decision for some sort of desire that surely doesn't justify what you're doing, but you do it anyway, and you off your own kid. I want to hear the justification.
Saying, woohoo, like, yay, I had an abortion.
Okay.
Like,
some people are, but I agree. Some people aren't, and a lot of people are victims.
Like when I was pregnant with my kid, I wasn't married.
Okay.
I was in a situation where I had to do such things.
Sure.
Or I would get, punished for it. But it's like I got cheated on, so I didn't want to be a single mom. So I was like, okay, I should have an abortion. And I thought that was
justifiable. And no, it wasn't. So you offed your kid?
No, I didn't.
Good. It's how would it be justifiable because something happened to you to off somebody else? How is that justice? If justice is to give to somebody what they are owed, how is your child owed losing their life if somebody cheats on you?
I just don't see it as a child. Like, obviously,
it is
he's a child.
Do you think it's a human? Do you think it's a human?
Yeah, it's a.
Does it have parents? Is it a human that has parents? How is it not a child? It's a young human that has parents, and you're telling me it's not a child?
It's a fetus.
Which means?
It's not a child yet, just like a tadpole is.
A fetus means that something is not a child yet? My understanding of fetus comes from the Latin root word that means young one or child. So when you say the word fetus, that is a signal that you're talking about a young human being or a child.
A human fetus. It's
right, a human fetus. It's a stage of development.
The stage.
Yes. And
it's okay, a potential child. Just like
it's a potential child. Is it a potential human or is it a human when it's a fetus?
Is a tadpole a frog?
Is the tadpole of the same species of the frog?
It's not a frog yet. It's like an
we're talking about
term.
The human species, right? So when we're talking about the human fetus, that of course is of the human species. I'm telling you, I want to protect and defend all human life. Okay, and you're telling me, well, no, I don't actually believe we should protect all humans. And on top of that, the human fetus, it's not a child, or maybe it's not a full human yet. What you're saying, especially on the latter part, is just wrong. It's factually incorrect. It is a child. That's a fine colloquial term to use for the situation. And it's also 100% a human being. It is a human being from the point it is conceived. When it comes into existence, after the egg is fertilized, it has unique individual human DNA, half from the mother, half from the father. It has all sorts of different characteristics about itself already picked out from that point of conception. It self-directs its own growth. It's alive. It's a human.
See, I feel like in the end, like, it just won't matter, because even if it is overturned, women will still be getting abortions or just unaliving themselves altogether.
It will matter, because women will not get as many abortions when it's banned.
I think it didn't work back in the day.
Where's your proof for that? How can you prove to me that banning abortion would not limit abortion? Because I think that it's quite common sense that when you restrict access to something, less of it will happen.
Not entirely, no.
So you are under the impression that if abortion was fully legalized in this country versus if it wasn't legal at all, that more abortions would happen when it's not legal versus when it is legal.
Yes.
Do you have any data to suggest that that would be true? Maybe from a time before Roe v. Wade?
See, I mean, you can't know for a fact. Like, I used to want to have more kids, and it's like, a lot of people ban abortions, and they think, oh, you know, more humans obviously will reproduce because you can't get abortions. But I know a lot of people who just won't. They either won't have kids specifically because abortions are banned now. Like, it scares me as a woman because I don't want, you know, to get in trouble or anything to happen because, let's say, you get stressed out or you have a miscarriage. Okay. I don't know why you think it's funny.
Because you're not actually engaging with the problem here. I think that it's unjust to off your kids, and you're telling me a story about how if you had a kid, you might have some stress. Okay, and what is the point here? You know,
James,
where
does
is
she
the
know
end
about
of this discussion?
Does she know about Texas? Do you know about Texas, James?
Specifically what parts? Like, what are you referring to?
I'm just referring to the ban in abortion in Texas and how there was a 99% reduction in Texas.
Okay.
Did you know about that?
Sure. Like, okay,
so
like I'm hearing it.
So it seems like banning it does have a drastic effect on the amount of abortions that are occurring. We've seen that in Texas. Yeah,
Well,
Alicia, why don't we consider these same reasons for born children too? We don't know mother situations. What if she can't take care of her born child?
Sorry, go ahead.
Huh?
I'm fine, go ahead.
I'm saying that why don't we take those same considerations that we just laid on the table for born children as well? Because you're not in somebody's situation. You don't know whether or not a mother who just gave birth to a child can actually take care of that child. So why don't we apply that same line of reasoning to born children as well?
Okay, but what if that same mother didn't have the option to get an abortion? Because people like you are saying you shouldn't be able to get an abortion.
Okay,
like,
fine. We'll just
like,
off the kids outside the womb.
Put it, what?
Let's just say
Alicia,
she didn't. Go ahead.
No, Alicia, do mothers have an option to unalive their born kids? Is that allowed?
But okay, we're talking about an unborn child here. At the end of the day, it's not. At a certain point, it's not even a child. It's an embryo. And if you want to talk statistically, even if you think, okay, like, life starts at conception, you're not killing a child, you're killing an embryo.
Okay, so I'm not even going to ask you what a child is. That's fine if you want to call it an embryo. All I'm saying is, why don't we just apply that same line of reasoning to the same kid? It's the same child inside the womb and outside the womb. It's just in a different place.
No, it's really not. Especially if you're talking about like the early stages of pregnancy when most women get abortions.
Were you once an embryo?
Well, okay, obviously.
Doesn't seem so obvious to you because you're speaking as if you weren't an embryo. That's not how human development works.
Mm-hmm. Have you changed? Have you become something other than a human being since you were an embryo?
It
evolved.
It is human life. but it's an embryo. It's not on the same moral standpoint as a full birthed human being. If you think about
That's
it,
not what I
like
asked. I
just
don't
asked
like
you a very
this.
simple question.
Have you been anything other than a human being since you were conceived?
no. I mean, no.
Okay, so it's a human being from the moment of conception. They just go through different stages in development.
Well, it's a
Right.
human life, but it's not a human being because it can't even live independently.
It's human
without
life,
the
but it's
mother.
not a human being. What do you mean by that?
What I'm saying is, it's just not on the same standpoint as an already born child. It's
We
an
get that.
embryo.
We get that. That's what you're saying. But prove it.
What do you mean, prove it?
You're
It's
making a
just-
statement. You're saying something that is contradictory to the knowledge that is out there that most of us
in terms
reasonable
of
people
what?
accept.
What knowledge
Prove
are you
your
talking
claim.
about?
We know that life begins at conception. That's what biology tells us. You're making a claim that essentially is counter to that. So prove that, and then also prove this moral argument that we should view the fetus differently than we view a child outside the womb. Those are your two things you got to show us.
Okay, I didn't say that life does not begin at conception, but what I did say is that an embryo is different from a child that is already born.
I understand. Would you support infanticide if we brought back the ancient practice to off our children once they're born? Would you support that?
No.
Why not? You support abortion. Seems to be in line with how you view the world.
Abortion is different.
I understand it's descriptively different, sure.
Not
Hold on, let me just explain to you, because there is a way we view the world, right? There is a science to try to understand how we view things. And you seem to view the world in a way that it's okay in certain circumstances to off your own children or to off human beings that are developing within you that you're related to. Why can't we off our own kids outside the womb? What stops us from doing that? Why is that wrong to do? We do it inside the womb, so why can't we do it outside the womb?
I want to appreciate the conversation.
What's stopping us from doing that?
The child has already been fully developed. What I'm saying is that
the child is fully developed outside of the womb?
Not fully. That's not what I meant.
Not fully.
I'm saying it's already
it's not even
been
really close to being fully developed.
Been born.
And why does that matter? When we're talking about a human being, why does it matter that we're going to give protections to the being that was born versus the being that was not born? Why does that matter that it was born?
Alicia, how old are you?
I'm 18.
What year were you born?
2000.
Okay. All right.
Bro said
that was a child.
2000.
I guess for me, and I've talked with Kay on his own life, just to give you my background.
Sure.
I do believe, I will concede that life begins at conception. I don't think it's really worth fighting. But what I would say is that the overall benefit to society is to allow women to be in control of their pregnancies. And that we have to ultimately draw some arbitrary line where we're okay having an abortion before birth.
I don't see it that way. I don't think that any good comes from that, giving women the option to off their own kids. What good does that produce?
Well, if a woman doesn't want to have a child, let's say she's a young woman, she's not ready to have a child, it wasn't part of her life plan, I don't understand why it's not a benefit to allow her to have her children later in life.
What is the point of, what are we trying to work towards in a society? What are we considering?
That's up to the individual as a whole.
So society is
the
just
collective whole.
A composition of a bunch of individuals that aren't working together to achieve something?
Well, everybody within society has different motivations and different desires and dreams. I guess as a collection, as a whole, I would argue that you're pretty much the weighted average of your collection. I'm not quite sure how you
I would
define
say,
what
and at
society
least
is ultimately trying to do.
In the United States and in most Western countries, since the beginning of civilization in the West, the idea has been to improve and work towards what is commonly good, right? And I accept that concept. I think that's a good thing to consider, because if we're all living together and we are a political community, then we should do things that overall has benefits for everyone. Now, when we're talking about a human being that is losing their life because their mother has a desire to off their own kid for whatever reason, I don't see that as benefiting the common good.
Well, you don't personally see that, but the collective of the whole does see that as a common good. That's why the overwhelming majority of people
how are they
agree.
getting there? Are they making some sort of utility calculus? Are they utilitarians? How is it commonly good to off somebody that's a part of the common good?
Again, I go back to my original argument. The benefit of being in control of your pregnancy outweighs the not having control of your pregnancy, as well as unaliving fetuses. And
what is the benefit there for the common good? If you accept that concept, what is the benefit there? You're saying that it's a benefit, but what exactly? Who's benefiting, and how?
I'm happy to answer that, but I'm happy to concede that there is a cost to an abortion, as you're saying, right? It's the unaliving.
It's a great cost, right?
Of a unaliving of a human life at the fetus stage, right?
Right.
But I guess you can't come my way and find any benefit for a woman being in control of her pregnancy.
I'm not against. First of all, I'm not against women being in control of their pregnancies, but no, I don't see any benefit worth even considering when you're talking about destroying the life of an innocent human. I think that human life is so incredibly important. I think that all human life is worth protecting. And so when you come at me and you say, well, what about the desires of the woman? What about what she wants to do with her child? Well, first of all, I say, it's not up to her. The child is not her property. That child is endowed rights by its creator, and one of which is literally the right to live, the right to exist, the right to life. So she doesn't get to make that decision. But also, what could she bring to the public to justify offing her kid? What is out there that does such a horrendously evil thing?
Can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
Interior?
Yeah.
When you say control over the pregnancy, what do you mean by that?
The decision on your life planning, when I intend to have children.
Okay, so you're not talking about controlling the actual process of pregnancy. You just mean the ability for her to make decisions over whether or not she wants to get an abortion or sustain the pregnancy.
Well, I mean, it's more complicated than just that, but we're talking about abortion, right? You know, a woman can choose whether or not she wants to wear contraceptives, or her significant other wear contraceptives to avoid pregnancy. They might, also we might not, if I'm in a relationship with somebody and we're new to the relationship, we might choose not to have sex because we don't want to have the risk of, getting pregnant with someone that I'm brand new with, right? There's lots of decisions to be made about pregnancy beyond just whether or not to have an abortion.
I agree. Yeah, maybe James has some questions.
So you off your own kid, right? You off your own child, you off this human being inside of you, and you say, I did it because of financial reasons. Explain to me how that's just. Even from however utility you view our society.
Well, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to explain it to you because you don't believe so. But I can
you
find.
Can explain it to me. It just might not compel me, or I might not accept it. But explain. I'm curious.
Argument.
Like, how does that justify that action?
Well, okay. Having a child is a huge investment, right?
Sure.
What if I am not of the proper mindset, or I'm not at a proper point in my life where I can give that entire investment that is needed for a child?
Adoption.
Okay, but why? Okay, but why? We already
because
have
that's a human being.
That's
a part of our community.
Okay, but there are I could point out other situations in the life cycle of living that we're okay with unaliving individuals, right?
Like,
it's not just abortion. Well, for example, if someone is in a coma for an extended period of time, we might pull the plug eventually, right?
I don't think that's necessarily a good thing to do.
Okay, well, let's say we're at war with another country. There is an acceptable amount of civilian death rate.
There is such thing as a just war, yes. You can have a war where you actually have objectives you're trying to accomplish that are in the interest of all these people, and if it is truly just, you try to minimize Civilian
Of
casualties,
course.
yeah.
Well,
That exists, sure.
not the intention may not actually be that. That's what the international laws try to do. But we are okay going to war and allowing some percentage of civilian death rates for the greater good. No?
Yeah, I mean, war is a complicated subject, but for example,
so is abortion.
if somebody's been engraping and stealing your women and children, and they're threatening to do that to you, or to continue to do that to you, then it may be reasonable to actually attack them to stop future harm to your political community, and that would be the basic approach for what we would call a just war.
But that's not what I'm arguing against. I understand
Okay.
going
You
after
just brought up war, so
I don't have any problem with sovereign nations going after combatants that are brutal and awful to them, right?
Right.
But when you do so, you are allowed by the international community to have a certain amount of civilians that are unalived in the process of going after those combatants. So there is a point in time where we're okay with the idea that some people will be unalived for the greater good of our efforts.
Right, because we can say that's justice, that they are owed that because their nation is doing things that is unjust to us. So we can make that calculation and say, well, if they're going to continue to do that, and they're going to continue to grape our women and children and steal them, right, and take them captive, then we must go to war to stop that. We have to stop that from happening, and that would be just. In the case of the child has done nothing wrong. The child is developing in the womb where it ought to be at its stage of development, a place that is designed for it, and you are saying we should off it. I'm looking for the justice.
I'm not saying we should.
Well, when you're pro-choice, you essentially are.
I'm saying it should be allowed.
You are saying that there are cases where it is just to off a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm getting at semantics do matter to some degree here. I don't think people should go out in abortions. I think they should be minimized. They should be legal. It's like what did Bill Clinton say? They should be legal and I can't remember what else he said. But yeah, and rare.
That's what they always say. They want to be legal, safe, and rare, but at the same time, they deeply want to be able to author kids all the way up to 9 months for whatever reason. That's their stance.
Okay, but
so
let's
safe,
talk about
legal,
that. For
and rare,
example.
but they want to give you the most access to abortion.
Okay, but the third trimester, how often? If we look at the rates of how often abortions happen throughout the life cycle of a pregnancy, the vast majority happen in the first trimester. So we can talk about how awful it is in the third trimester, but that is a very low percentage.
Yeah, the first trimester is where most abortions occur. Yep, that's where you literally starve your child and then push it out of your body. Yeah. That's still a bad thing to do.
Yeah, I don't promote this, but I still think it should be legal.
Well, you kind of do.
So I guess
you kind of do because you want to give the option to do it.
Well, that's not promoting something. That's saying that I believe someone has the right to make that decision. I'm not going to go out
this
and
whole
advocate,
idea
hey,
of
you should do this.
Let me explain to you how this is from a societal political sense is really silly argumentation. So you're saying my body, my choice. I want to give the option to do this evil thing, but I don't support the evil thing. Well, what does that even mean? Because is not everything that we do in our society based on our body and what we choose to do and not do? Isn't that the basis of politics and the city state and how everything works? For you to say, right, that this is about my body and my choice. Okay, duh. Right? Yeah, that is politics. That is what we debate all the time. How much liberty, or rather, how much freedom you have, and what is the liberty here? What should you do and what should you not do? That is the debate. So when you say things like "my body, my choice," give the option to do what is evil, you're really just hiding the fact that you want to support pro-abortion legislation and pro-abortion ideology, and I'm against that. I am pro-life. I'm against abortion.
Yeah. No. I think you're going on a little bit of a tangent here. I'm saying I'm not promoting people. Hey, go out and do this. That's not what I'm promoting. I think it should be legal, but I would advocate to expend all options before coming to that conclusion.
You would advocate to expend all options. Let's play this game. Let's play this game.
No. We're going down to semantics.
No. I actually think this is interesting, and if we can get you to do this, it's not where I would like for you to be, but it might be some progress. So would you create a process that a woman has to go through to justify her abortion?
No.
No progress here. So you still wouldn't limit it to any extent. You'd still just let her do it, even if she didn't feel good that day.
Look, it has to be safe. It has to be a medical procedure. So are you asking, would I make sure that a doctor is involved?
Okay.
And I'm not a medical professional,
Listen,
so
man,
I can't
you want
tell
to
you
be
all
you are the Democrat here, or at least you seem to support some Democrat ideologies. You want it to be safe, legal, and rare. How do we get there?
Yeah.
Right? How is it going to be rare, first of all? Because if you make it legal at all 9 months, it surely is not going to be rare. People are going to off their kids for not as moral as we used to be.
Well, good sexual education, right? Providing contraceptives, right? Providing resources
That's
to mothers
we already have that, man. Everybody learns sex ed in school, and contraceptives are available everywhere.
Do you think that doesn't help?
Does it help with what? Not creating kids? Yeah, I think contraception helps not create kids.
Do you think it helps lower the rate of abortions?
Kay, do you have the data on that? I don't know. I actually don't know.
Okay, well, if contraceptives didn't exist, would there be more abortions or no?
Did you guys hear me?
If contraceptives, yeah, we can hear you. If contraceptives did not exist, would there be more abortions? Probably, yeah, because people mistakenly use abortion as birth control.
He's asking
if it was legal.
The abortion rate has actually been going down of recent as well.
Okay, I'm trying to get rid of abortion.
I know, but my point is that over the last couple of decades, the abortion rate has actually been going down.
Okay, that still doesn't mean that it should exist.
But my point is contraceptives, sexual education do have an impact on the amount.
We're not arguing about contraceptives and sex ed right now. That's fine with me. Yeah, sure, they can have an impact.
Okay,
sure.
Okay, so I'd actually like to go back to the war argument, because you actually said it was okay for a sovereign nation to go after another nation of combatants that did something really awful.
Yeah.
And you are okay with a civilian death rate because
I'm not okay
that country
with it.
did that.
I don't cherish innocent people losing their lives, but there is such thing as a just war. Yes.
Okay. So, well, then let me ask you this. Is it okay for the greater good that leads to the cost of life to allow something in society that would end up with a cost to life?
Is it okay? I don't know really how to answer that question. Is it okay for the greater good to lose life?
If I provide something to society that ends up with people being unalived, but it ultimately is the greater good for society, is it okay to have that in society?
If you're talking about our own political community, then no. Also, I'm not going to just give you a single principle on that, because politics is not just simply an abstraction that works every single time. We have to utilize all sources of knowledge, including philosophy, but also what has happened in the past, what is the prescription, right? What our intuitions are saying, and the specific case. So,
let me give you a specific
for example,
case.
in abortion, it's not good for the common good because you're literally eliminating people that are a part of the common good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, for example, driving cars, flying planes, people will be unalived for the greater good. Correct?
How?
Well, there's car accidents every year.
Okay.
But for the greater good, we still allow people to drive cars.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, people knowingly go drive cars. People knowingly get into planes. That's fine.
We also allow people to smoke.
We do, yes.
We also allow people to eat really awful food.
Right.
That leads to heart disease.
Where are we going here, man? How is this going to dismantle my argument? Because I think what we're going to end up coming here is we're going to realize something about our human nature, and that is that man ought to be free, which I'm totally cool with. And if man ought to be free, then it still doesn't make sense to off a human that has done nothing wrong.
Well, again, we're okay with the unaliving of other individuals for the greater good for lots of things that we provide in society.
I'm not okay with somebody dying in a car accident. I don't think that's a good thing.
Neither am I.
But
Neither am I. But it's a cost
they made the choice to enter into a car and to drive it, and I'm not forcing them to do that, and I'm not
someone made a choice
to die.
Someone made a choice to have sex and decided that they don't want to have the child.
Well, they made a child. So I'm sorry that you didn't want the child, but you created one.
Okay. So I guess where do we go from? I guess okay. Well, let me ask you this then. Okay, it is a technology that is afforded to society. You don't agree with it. I agree with it. Do you agree with vasectomies?
Do I agree with vasectomies? I wouldn't get
Should
one
they be
myself,
legal?
but
Should they be legal?
I think that's fine. Yeah, if you want to do that to yourself, go ahead.
Okay,
but it's kind of weird.
Would there or would there not be more life if vasectomies were illegal?
If vasectomies were illegal, I don't know what. If they were illegal, so you couldn't get them.
If you
that
could
means
not
that
get a vasectomy,
there might be more life. Yes, if they were legal,
I think it's fair to say there would be a lot more life.
I don't think it would have a great impact on anything.
Really? You think people are going to?
Where's this going, man? Where's this going? You don't have to get a vasectomy. It has nothing to do with unaliving your child.
Follow me here. If people at 40 years old decide, you know what, I don't want to have any more kids. I'm going to have a vasectomy, right?
Okay.
They're
40 years old. They might not even be able to have kids, but
at 40 years old, a man can have a kid well into.
If we're talking about a man and a woman that are 40, and the woman's 40, she might, she's getting up there, so she might not.
Okay, what if he breaks up with? What if he leaves his wife and marries a new younger woman?
Okay.
The point.
So
you're
saying they have a kid.
The point is that if vasectomies were all of a sudden taken away, we would have a lot more life, would we not?
We might, yeah. We might have more children, yes. We would have probably more children, but I don't know if a lot more. I don't know.
Okay, so we have another procedure that had we not allowed that procedure, there would be a lot more life to be had.
I'm not making so I don't know if you think I'm making like some sort of utility calculus as to we want more life and therefore that is part of the common good. No, I'm saying that it is against what is best for our society to literally off our own kids, because offing our own kids is bad. That kid is a part of our society. That kid is a human being. So it's not justifiable to off their life. That is why it's bad. It's not because I have some like utility calculus going in my head where I'm trying to, run the numbers and increase the amount of kids. It's not bad to increase the number of kids, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that the fact that you are committing essentially political violence on this human that has done nothing wrong, that's the issue at hand.
Okay, but you're making a societal benefit argument there, right? It is better to not allow for abortion.
Do you believe that let me ask you the basic principle, since you've asked me a lot of different abstractions. Do you believe that good societies off their own people?
In general, no.
Okay. So there you go. I don't either.
I support abortion, so I have to say in general, right?
Right. You believe that certain human beings, it's okay to off them, and that's actually good for society. I don't agree. And I don't think that that's just to do, and I don't think it's morally good to do. So there's a bunch of layers here, but nothing good comes from it.
Okay, well, I guess at the end of the day, you have what you would say is a principled argument, and I have an argument that the vast majority of people in society think it should be legal, and it happens to be legal.
Your argument, sir, this utilitarian seeming argument could be used to justify slavery, infanticide, and other evil things. Just viewing life and our society from purely a utilitarian mindset, that's what that produces. Like, it's evil to do that. Oh, yeah, it's affecting that human. And, they really can't experience it, so who cares? But at the end of the day, there's some benefit here, right? The woman gets to live her life in a certain way, right? We actually get some sort of economic gain from this. I don't view the world that way. I do not.
Okay, I do not support slavery. Do you support slavery?
I do not, but I'm saying that your mindset, your utilitarian mindset, can be used to justify slavery, can be used to justify infanticide, and it was. I mean, that was a big part of the argument for slavery was utility behind it, because it was the agriculture in the South has always been a big deal, and slavery was a big part of that, and there is a real economic toll when you take away the slaves. So it had been justified there, and it was justified in infanticide throughout the Middle Ages, right? If you're not able to actually care for your kids, whatever that means, then you can off them to some point. Of course, the Catholic Church, curved that idea, and it said, no, you can't off your little kids. That's wrong to do. Don't do that. It's actually not good for you guys. So I'm pointing out that your political mindset, that's what it produces sometimes.
It does. I don't support that, but here's what I would say. Well, here's my next question. Do you support people making dirt poor wages for society's benefit?
Do I support that? No, I don't. Of course I don't.
Do you own a phone?
I do.
Do you own a computer?
I do.
Okay. Do you realize that there are people out there working for a couple dollars a day
Yeah.
to
Those
capture
lithium
rare
mines are very
earth
disgusting.
metals? Yes, they are.
Yeah.
So you would okay. So
It's
again,
bad.
it
It's not
sounds
good stuff.
very utilitarian of you to own a computer and own a phone when you don't support that type of wage labor.
Well, I'm not making a utility calculus there. I just understand that men are not angels and men ought to be free, and that the amount of freedom we currently have is actually really good, and it has allowed for us to have a good society. I don't know what your proposition would be to change here, but if you want to restrict too much or you want to make us too free, that can be very problematic. So, yeah, I'm not saying that the fact that those mines exist and that we have child labor across seas, I'm not saying that any of that's good. I'm not saying that capitalism is perfect. I'm not a pure capitalist. I am a Catholic. I believe in Catholic social teaching.
Me neither.
So I'm not in love with capitalism. It is flawed. However, our current system is pretty good. It's pretty good for our people. And we can, if we look at history, we can see how radical abstractions, whether it be from utility or whether it be from some sort of communistic approach, how that can just devolve and destroy societies. So we need to tread lightly here.
Sure. I guess my point is that we all look the other way for our own benefit in different ways. Okay? I'm not judging you. I do it as well. That was my ultimate point, right?
Sure.
And so I understand your stance on abortion. I respect it. It's a free country. You're allowed to believe whatever you want. Actually, I appreciate you having me on here. I have to go, but I will look for you another time. I hope we can continue the conversation.
Yeah, bro, you were actually really fun to talk to. And we got to talk about stuff I don't always get to talk to people about. It might have annoyed, or not annoyed Kay, but it might have bored Kay, but that's okay.
No. All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Sorry for talking so much, brother. But
No, you're good. That was a good convo.
All right, we'll talk to Burb's dad. Let me just check my phone battery real quick. We got some time. Burb's dad, how are you?
What's up, man? So you're making a secular argument, but I think that you're Catholic. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, why are you making a secular argument? Because your argument is based purely on your Catholicism.
It's not purely based on Catholicism, but everything comes down to religion at some point, in my view, at least.
Yes, exactly. So be upfront with that. I mean, it took me a while because I was like, oh, this guy's like, trying to make a secular argument, but I keep hearing these things. It's like, just be upfront.
Well, I tell people the truth. Everything comes down to religion. That's what I believe. I describe religion as a habit of virtue that renders to God what he deserves. I believe God is the infinite good. Some people believe God is money. Some people believe God is sex. Some people believe God is the individual. I disagree with those notions. I think those are what we call false gods. So I give myself fully to God. And so,
no, that's very cute. Like, it's like, okay, well, you can't have a God besides the God I believe in. And if you're
you can, but it would be a false God because it wouldn't be God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, Burbs, are you religious?
I deconstructed about 6 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm agnostic at best.
Wait, you deconstructed? What does that even mean?
That it's like a new thing that people do nowadays, where they go on this whole study of how they quote unquote deconstruct or pick apart religions and Christianity. And
so
whatever.
did you guys did when you were deconstructing, did you get rid of the university and the hospital?
No, I was in university. I mean, I went to a Christian school. I mean, obviously not.
No, but I'm saying that if you truly were deconstructing Christianity and deconstructing Christianity's influence on your life or whatever you were doing, did you get rid of the idea of a university and the idea of a hospital? Because those are Christian ideas. Did you get rid of the idea of brotherhood of man, another Christian idea? Did you get rid of the Big Bang Theory?
It's a logical fallacy. It's like, okay, well, this started because of the reality, so you have to take away all of.
So what's the point of deconstruction then? I'm just confused. That's all.
That is a good comeback. I will agree with you on that, because you made the premise of like, oh well, Catholicism, because that's what you believe is true. The truth.
I think it's true.
Yeah. Well, hey,
but you know that you don't have to make a religious-based argument, right?
Excuse me?
It's like, well, the whole let's get back to abortion, but you said you deconstructed, right? Whatever that means. So, Christianity has contributed a ton of things to the public conversation, most of which are very good. I'm just curious what you deconstructed. Did you deconstruct just the few things that were bad, or did you deconstruct everything that was good? Like what are you deconstructing?
Oh, well, I'll tell you exactly what I deconstructed. I mean, my father was a pastor, my grandfather was a pastor. I went to a religious school, and then I realized, hey, what I have been taught on Sunday morning every day is not what is reality based on academics, based on the
So
translation.
you consider mostly things in your inner life. You didn't really consider the public contributions of Christianity. You just care about how Christianity affected what is personal to you.
No,
you would say. Oh,
no,
so
no. I
you
disagree
did
with
consider
that.
some of the public interactions.
Mostly public interactions, mostly what had to deal, not deal, what I saw society believing and it being absolutely false from historical relevance. That's why I deconstructed, yes.
Okay, I think that you likely have a false view of history because Christianity has literally animated the entire world. But let's talk about abortion.
No. Whoa.
Well, no, this is an abortion live, man. If you want to join my Discord server, we can talk about this after. I'm happy to do it. But
Okay. Yeah, let's go back
if you
to
focus
abortion.
on the public life
Let's go back
and
to abortion. So
deconstructing
I have
I don't
one
know.
simple
It's a little
question.
weird.
Now, I don't know who your buddy is. Is he also Catholic?
No, he's not Catholic, unfortunately. He is Christian, but he doesn't approach the issue from a religious standpoint because you don't need to.
Okay, so you've talked about societal things and all that kind of stuff, and that's cool.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm going to ask you one religious question, and I'd like to hear from him and you. What happens to the aborted soul?
From the Catholic perspective, we don't entirely know.
Okay, I mean, like personally, do you think it goes to, this heaven? Well, I know Catholics, you believe in purgatory. There's a waiting time, and and in reality, the Bible literally says there will be a resurrection and a new earth. But
yeah, I believe in purgatory. Purgatory is in the Bible. They removed it, but it's in there.
Yeah, but personally, do you believe like the soul of an aborted fetus has a place to go?
Yeah, it's gonna go somewhere if it's a soul. Our souls are eternal, so from the Catholic perspective, it will go somewhere. I don't know where it goes. The church hasn't.
But you're willing
definitely.
To okay, well, I don't know where it goes.
The church has actually, just so you're aware, from the Catholic perspective, it has never made the call that somebody is going to hell. They have never made that call because we don't know. So I can't tell you exactly where those souls are going. All I know is that I want to give them a chance to be saved.
Okay. But you've also admitted you're not an extreme pacifist. So, an innocent child being bombed, you're okay with that because you're not a pacifist.
I'm not okay with that. I think that's wrong.
So
we
shouldn't
bomb an innocent child. What's the issue here? We shouldn't bomb an innocent child.
You're doing a live on abortion, which has nothing to do with you, that you have no control over. Well,
it does have something to do with me. I live in a political community, and people are offing their own kids.
Yeah, but we live in a political community where we're literally offing real kids.
Okay. Both are real kids, but okay, I understand what you're trying to say.
No, there's actually a legal definition for life.
There's a legal definition for biological life?
Yeah, for sure.
Really? Do you want to show Kay and I where that legal definition for biological life is?
Yes. I mean, most...
Okay, get ready for this, man.
Most nations... Well, we can go back to the literal... We can go back to the literal first part of Genesis. And
there's a legal definition for when human life begins.
I know.
Let's go to Genesis.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
Hysterical. Yes, I do agree. I moved the goal.
What is legality going to tell you about biology?
Oh, we have a Christian talking about biology?
What?
Bro, what? What? We can't talk about biology? We can't be reasonable people?
Why is it always the non-religious people bringing up religion, man? We don't even want to talk about religion, and we're the religious people. I feel like he's intoxicated.
All right, let's drop him because it was interesting at first, but it just keeps getting weirder and weirder. Excuse me. We'll talk to Desire. Guys, if you're not in the Discord, please join the Discord. And also, let's keep the likes going. Maybe we can get 15K before we end tonight. Get some more pro-choicers in here and have some conversations. Desire?
It's Desiree.
Desiree.
Yeah.
That was really stupid. Desiree, My apologies. My apologies. How are you?
Hi. So wait, why are you against abortion?
Because you should not off your own kid.
I mean, to a certain extent, I agree, but I mean, there's like rape. There's
Whoa! Can't say
there's
that on TikTok. TikTok, sorry. You gotta say grape, and let's just try to
Grape,
avoid using the word. But yeah.
Okay, but even that,
Or
do you
essay.
know how many children are like in orphanages and cannot even be taken care of? What about the women that just have their child and then throw them in dumpsters? You hear that every day.
So you care deeply about these children in orphanages and children that need to be adopted. Is that correct? You care deeply about them?
Yes.
Do you support IVF?
Yes.
Why? I thought you cared about those kids that need to be adopted. Do you understand that if IVF becomes a practice across all of our states in this country, that's going to completely destroy the adoption industry? That kids are not going to be adopted because people are going to literally go to a lab and create their own ideal human being?
But I'm also pro-choice. I'm all about autonomy. If I'm
right, you're all about autonomy, and you do care about those adoption kids, but you would support a practice that would literally make sure that those kids you would probably say are really here wouldn't get adopted. That's what you would support. Do you really care about those adopted kids? Because I don't actually support that practice. I believe that we shouldn't allow people to make babies in labs, and you should adopt one of those kids.
I worked with CPS kids, so I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem you really care about kids, at least ideologically.
I mean, I definitely care about kids, but
you definitely do, but you don't care about those adopted kids. You would support IVF, even though it would destroy the opportunity for many kids to get adopted.
There's people that financially can't do it, and am I saying to use it as a form of birth control? Absolutely not. Like, if a woman chooses to get one once, then you should get on birth control right away. And I mean, I'm all about pro-choice. So,
Desiree, do you have an argument? Did you come today with an argument to talk to me, or did you just want to come up and look at my stash?
Did you say your stash?
I'm messing with you. I'm just joking around, okay? Don't get offended or feel
no, you're fine. That's just my stance, and you have yours, I have mine, and yeah.
Yeah, and we live together, or at least in the same community, and we have to decide what is right and whose stance is more correct.
This
so,
girl
do you have an argument?
Can kill humans if we can't afford them. What the heck? That's not exactly what I said.
Well, you might support that. You're a pro-choice
I mean,
person.
just some people, like, if you financially can't take care of a kid, it's like, why bring a kid into this world? But also, I agree.
Don't bring a kid into the world. That's fine with me.
But if you decide to have the kid, then obviously there are alternatives, like giving them up for adoption. So, I mean,
sure. Yeah.
I gargle with fire. I mean, your username says it all,
okay.
girl.
Desiree, I can read the comments too. We're just going to move on because you're kind of not really adding anything to the conversation. We'll talk to JJ. I think I've talked to JJ before, but we don't have many in the box. So,
yeah,
JJ, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. What do you have to say?
Well, I guess I kind of wanted to figure out where your stance comes from. And I mean,
sure.
I don't think that anybody who is pro-choice is in support of offing children. They are in support of the mother being able to choose. Go ahead and make that face. It's fine. Nobody that is pro-choice is in
Well, it's just
support
kind of a silly
abortion.
statement. Let's be honest, man.
Yeah, nobody.
You are. If you're pro-choice, you're in support to some extent of offing kids.
We are not in support of it. We are in support of the mother being able to make her own choice.
The choice to do what?
The choice to have an abortion.
Okay, the choice to have an abortion. Let me make this very simple for you. I and Kay are fully against offing innocent human children. We are fully against it. We don't think it's good. Don't off innocent human children.
Meaning that you are
there cases where you actually think you can support or you support?
Correct?
Are there? Hold on. Are
like
there
by
cases?
By that logic,
are there? Hold on, JJ. Are there cases where you support offing innocent human beings?
Support it? Not necessarily. Allow it.
So then why would you support an option to do it?
JJ, I have a question.
Of course you do.
JJ, would you say this for any other issue?
Wait, why am I getting the questions? I started off asking you a question that I've not gotten an answer to. Anyways, go ahead. Would I support this in any other situation with no other context into what the next question is going to be? Yes.
Well, what I'm saying is, if the pro-lifer views this as a human rights violation,
I didn't say human rights.
That's why I said pro-lifer. right?
Is
So if the
that where your stance comes from as human rights?
finish my sentence.
Yeah, but is that where your stance comes from as human rights?
I'm gonna finish my sentence.
Go ahead.
Okay? So if the pro-lifer views this as a human rights violation, okay, and that it's a wrong thing to do because it's violating the rights of the fetus, say for example, and we just use that line of reasoning that you just posited for any other kind of human rights violation. Let's just say, oh well, I'm not in support of grape, but I think people should have a choice to grape. How silly would that sound?
Oh, very silly. And that's why I said with zero context into what the next question was going to be that I supported it, but it wasn't a definitive answer because I knew that you were going to go somewhere ridiculous. Now, your stance seems to be based on human rights, correct, Kay?
Are you asking me or?
I'm asking Kay. I'd prefer, because I know that James's stance is religious based and I can't fight religion.
It's not religious based.
Okay, I'd like to not speak with James. I'd like to speak with Kay.
Okay, that's fine. If you want to talk to Kay, he's fine.
Yeah. So where does your stance come from, Kay? Is it a?
I want to talk to James.
I literally just said. Anyways,
JJ, is it because of the stash, man? It doesn't bite. It doesn't bite.
I'm gay, but I am not interested
You're
in
gay?
Ben Shapiro. Like, let's be real. Like, I'm not.
Ben Shapiro. I'm not Jewish.
Sir, you are disgusting. Anyways,
I'm disgusting. First of all, I said, is it because of the stash? And you said, hold up.
I
I'm
hate
gay.
that you're using these weird.
That might actually
sexual
build the
things.
case
You
that you
used
might
it
like
with
the
the last
stash.
guest. You're using it with me. Let's move on. Kay, where does your stance come? Is it human rights?
Yeah, I think there's an obligation that the mother has.
Okay. Where do human rights come from, Kay?
Where do human rights come from?
Yes.
Yeah, so take rights. That's an interesting question. I think it might be, so my fundamental position ultimately comes from natural law theory, which is a position in metaphysics. Are you familiar?
Where do human rights come from, Kay?
Yeah, that's what I just told you. I'm asking a clarifying question if you're familiar with metaphysics.
No.
Okay, that's what my position is fundamentally based in.
Okay, who gives people their human rights?
I think that rights are endowed to us, whether or not those rights are endowed by virtue of natural necessity or some sort of creator outside of us. That's a separate conversation that we can have. But I think that they are endowed to us, and I think that the government is there to regulate those rights and to enforce them.
Who do our human rights come from?
Did you hear the answer that I just gave? Or?
I did. You said that they were endowed. You didn't say by whom.
Yeah, what did I say after I said endowed?
Basically just the fact that a person exists. Is that correct?
No. All right. So I said that it's either going to be
removed due to community violations. Okay. I don't know how, but
he got removed for community violation. Damn.
Yeah, if you guys reported him, please don't do that. Even though he was quite funny actually. I don't think he was being that rude. He just didn't want to talk to me, but yeah, he got removed.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll just answer the question. Yeah, it's either going to be the case that rights are endowed to us by virtue of natural necessity, or they're going to be endowed to us by our creator. I can defend either position if you'd like, but yeah, that's where rights come from.
All right, we'll talk to Mike Pospis. Doing well. What do you have to say?
Hey, okay, so would it be fair to say that your stance derives from your position that a fetus and a woman have equal rights?
I would say that's fair.
Okay, but you recognize the medical exception, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
And what is the extent of the medical exception that you recognize?
Self-defense.
In what sense?
That you need to off your kid to defend your own life.
Okay, so what about in the case of grape?
I don't give that exception.
Why?
Because there's no justice in offing that kid. And I value justice in our world. I value what's good, and you can derive good from what is just.
Would you say that there's justice in offing a fetus where the fetus poses a risk to the mother's life?
Medical exception, yes.
Yeah,
well,
pose.
Go ahead, Kay, please.
Cases of medical necessity aren't administered by abortive procedures. Usually they'll induce labor or C-section or something along those lines. But Mike, let me ask you a question. If we did give you the SA exception, would you ban the rest of abortions, like elective abortions?
No. So I'll tell you my stance, and this is where I come from.
If you wouldn't, why did you come out the gate? Hold on. So if you wouldn't, Why did you come out the gate with grave cases then?
Well, I'm just trying to test the consistency of your recognition of relative rights as between fetus and mother.
Okay.
Because
So
I mean, in my view, you focus extensively on the fetus and its rights, but you don't carry the argument to term, pun intended. So you don't focus very much on the relative rights of mother and fetus, and that's really where
what do you mean by relative rights?
What is a relative right?
Well, the relative rights is between the mother's right to bodily autonomy and the fetus's right, assuming it has rights.
Okay, so let's assume that the fetus has a right to live, which is a pretty fundamental right, the most important right, and one that I think it's very reasonable to give to every single human being. Why does the mother's relative right to bodily autonomy triumph over that?
Well, at the end of the day, my position is that the woman's right will always exceed the right, or whatever the rights the fetus has. And if abortion, I would say, is not murder, in all cases, it's justifiable homicide.
How is it justified?
You didn't answer the question. You just restated the premise. He's asking you to substantiate that premise. Why is it the case that the mother's the rights to her bodily autonomy supersede the right to life?
Well, see, this is where we reach a stalemate, because I can ask you why.
Well, no, we don't really reach a stalemate. We can substantiate it, and we will when we get there. But how do you substantiate it? You're making the claim. It's not a stalemate.
Well, I mean,
just go further.
Right, but you're making the claim that we should ban abortion. So
right, because it's not justified to off a kid because that kid has done nothing wrong, so they're not owed losing their life. That's not justice.
You give the medical exception, so that kid has
self-defense because the kid is actively killing the mother.
Well, it's not intentionally killing the mother, right?
Right, it doesn't matter. That is what is happening. In this case, the kid is actively killing the mother in this idea of self-defense. Now,
it's not intentionally doing
I'm asking you to substantiate your stance. You say that the right to bodily autonomy supersedes the right to life. Why?
Well, in my view, that's axiomatic. That the woman who is born, who is a born person, you can laugh all you like, who is a born person.
Did you just say that's axiomatic?
Yes, it's a fundamental principle. I mean, you guys do the same thing.
Actually, that's not a fundamental principle.
Well, you do the same thing.
Fundamental principle. Are you saying that there's precedent for that, and that's been the way that we've done things in the past?
I would say that there's precedent. Well, would you agree that not all human beings have identical rights?
I would agree that some countries recognize different human rights basis on humans, but I would say that all human beings are equally protected under the law in a just and good society, because that's how it should be.
Okay. Does a 6-year-old have the legal right to consume and purchase alcohol?
No.
Bro said it's axiomatic.
I'm really not trying to be funny, but I
said no. No, they do not.
It does. Okay, so you would acknowledge that human beings at different stages of development have different rights that are legally recognized.
I would say that the right to buy alcohol or the ability to buy alcohol is more of a privilege.
Okay, how about the right to drive a car, the right to vote?
That's a privilege. Voting even really is. I mean, I guess a right privilege. It's kind of a weird conversation, but
the right to vote,
privilege versus an entitlement. You know,
there are circumstances in which the law recognizes that one group of people have
not all men are equal. Yes, men have different developmental stages. Men are of different classes. Men are different heights. Men have different skin colors. Right? Not all men are the same, but all men are equally protected under the law. So that child who's 6 has equal protection to me. Right? We're equally protected under the law, but we have different privileges. Right? I have the privilege that I can vote. I have the privilege that I can drink alcohol, right? After the stream, I'll probably pour some proper number 12, Irish whiskey, which isn't very good, but I'm probably going to have a glass of that. 6-year-old doesn't have the ability to do that.
Wait, I have to ask Mike, I have to ask you.
Yes.
Do you know what an axiom is?
Yes.
What is an axiom?
It's a fundamental principle that we accept as true to advance the discussion. I may not be giving the textbook definition, but that's my understanding.
You also agree that these axiomatic systems are what we base our justifications for proposition off of, right?
All right. For purposes of this discussion, I'll concede that. And?
And so you understand that the very nature of this conversation directly contradicts that, right? The very
I don't agree
nature
with
of this
that.
conversation is
I
whether or not that statement is justifiable. If it was an axiom, there wouldn't be a conversation about whether or not that's a true proposition.
Well, I hold the principle that a born woman, a born person, has more rights than an unborn entity.
Hey, Kay,
And
guess what?
you
I don't
agree.
hold that principle.
Well, you agree. You would not agree with that. Obviously, you hold the opposite premise, or principle. But at the end of the day, this is why we're always
At
going
the
to.
end of the day, your position is you're saying that your principles are axiomatic, and mine are
His are
not.
just axiomatic, so we just have to accept
Well,
it.
you win, man.
I'm not asking you just to
White
accept it,
flag.
but do you believe that life begins at conception?
Well,
We
of
don't
course.
believe
Okay,
that.
of course, James. James, what is your conception day? Do you celebrate it?
I don't.
You don't? You don't celebrate the day you were born minus 9 months?
I do not. And it
Why?
wouldn't be 9 months. It'd be 9 months and 2 weeks.
What?
Usually.
Thank you for the clarification. Why?
Because that's not what we do culturally. Every culture has its own veneration and its own tradition, and
Almost
all
as if
cultures
birth is a
seem to
significant
celebrate the birth
event
of
today.
a human.
Okay, almost as if birth is a relevant and significant event.
I'm not going to deny that's not relative and significant, but
rise to
that
certain
doesn't
rights
mean that
the unborn
you
don't
become
have.
a human at birth. And I care about people who are humans.
Okay, so you want to ban abortion. Are you prepared to criminally prosecute women who
Like
seek
your
and obtain
tone's
abortion?
increasing a bit. I think you're getting a bit frustrated because your
No.
axiomatic principles aren't so axiomatic. But yes, I am prepared to ban it. I am prepared to do. If I had the ability, I would ask the government to enforce that law to the
What do you mean
fullest
if you
extent.
had the ability? I mean, you're here advocating to ban abortion.
Yes,
which
I am.
means
I
you are
believe
asking
that's what we should do.
to bring the government and its enforcement mechanism and its punishment mechanism into a medical discussion as between a woman and her doctor, or between an issue between a woman and her doctor. So, are you
And a
prepared
child, yes.
to? Okay, so are you prepared?
Yeah, we're gonna go in and we're gonna save these kids. That's what we're gonna do.
Do you think that
I'm okay
banning
with that.
abortion will result in saving kids? How is that going to happen?
Because we won't be offing the kids. Because if you off your kid, you're going to get in trouble. And we're going to curve the offing of children. We're going to ban it. You're not going to be able to do that anymore.
What do you mean you're not going to be able to do that anymore? Banning something just means you're going to make it punishable by law. It's not going to end the practice. You're not going to wave a wand.
Yeah, we're going to close down every single Planned Parenthood. There's no reason for us to be giving tax dollars to such a crappy institution where trolls and bugs live. It's disgusting. We're going to get rid of it. That's not going to exist anymore. People are not going to be able to go to these scumbag doctors and off their children.
And you think
the whole
will
abortion
stop?
infrastructure is going to come down.
And you think abortion will stop?
Most of it will, yes. I believe most of it will.
Because activities stop once they're criminalized?
When you enforce the law, activities do stop. For example, in New York City, New York City does best when the police enforce the law and they actually come down hard on criminals. When they don't enforce the law, which is what has happened in the last coming years under Eric Adams, you have larger amounts of crimes and the city heads into turmoil. So yes, I do believe, politically speaking, that enforcing the laws actually has an impact and it makes things safer and it makes things better. In the case of abortion, if you actually enforce the law that you can't actually off your kid, people are not going to be offing their kids.
So I live in New York City and I see crime, I see issues like that. And I know first and foremost that having laws on the books that prohibit certain activity doesn't prevent the activity from happening. So
right.
do you really believe that abortion
you have your legislature. You have your legislature that legislates, creates the laws, right? You have your judiciary that probably has more power than it should, but whatever. We have a conservative court now at the federal level, right? You have your judiciary branch, your Supreme Court, and there'll be the judges, and then you have your executive, which is going to enforce the law. What I am proposing is that the laws that we have on the books and the laws that we're going to create, as it relates to abortion, for example, we actually enforce. We actually make sure that people are following the laws. And that's the fundamental governmental practice that at least we do in the United States of America.
So I would say that in any situation where a woman is contemplating an abortion, it's because there are issues that are devastating in her life that make having a child simply not practical, not feasible. My proposition or my position is that bringing the government into that and its punishment mechanism is going to have disastrous effects. It's actually going to harm women. It's going to hurt people, and it's going to make the world a worse place.
Right, and I am of the view that when you off children, it's going to harm those children because you're going to be taking their lives away.
When you say off children, I mean, your live is titled ban abortion, but it's really ban abortion with an asterisk, right? Because it's except in the case of medical
I guess if I had more room up here, I would say ban 99.1% of abortions.
Okay, so what scope of exception do you recognize for the medical exception?
Didn't we start with this?
No,
medical necessity. So in the case of
define...
reasonable self-defense.
Okay, but meaning what specifically?
In the same way, I can give you this basic principle. In the same way, we would say, like, I support self-defense if somebody comes into your house, right? You could say, well, like, what exactly does that mean? What does that look like in practice? Okay, we can sit down and we can look at 1,000 cases, right? And we can play the judiciary and try to understand what is self-defense and what is not. But we do have a judicial system for that. I think it's better just to accept the fact that I'm going to say it's a principle of self-defense. That is something that you have to view. You have to look at the president, how we viewed it before, and you have to apply your principles, but you have to actually look at the situation and reason what is correct and what is actually self-defense.
So let me just explain why I think the self-defense lens is not a good lens for the abortion discussion, because in a self-defense scenario, you've got two adults and one is the aggressor and one is the defender, and the defender is employing the doctrine of self-defense. The aggressor is a bad actor, right? They are intentionally doing something that is causing imminent harm or the threat of harm to the defender. Your analogy would require the fetus to be cast in the role of aggressor, but you've already defined the fetus as an innocent entity in the case of SA. I view those positions inconsistent.
You can unintentionally unalive people. You can unintentionally unalive people. We have a word for that, right? So you can, on accident, unalive somebody, and you would be, technically speaking, aggressing upon them, not of your own volition, but on accident.
Right.
And you could be liable for that.
Right. So in my view, the issue of abortion and the debate and the whole discussion boils down not to, what rights does the fetus have, but rather the balance of rights as between woman and fetus.
No, that is where you don't understand the discussion. It does boil down to that, because if you say axiomatically that the fetus doesn't have rights, that is a problem, because first of all, it's not axiomatic.
I said it doesn't have rights. I didn't say it doesn't have rights. I didn't say it doesn't have rights. What I said was, in my view, I'm conceding for purposes of this discussion that a fetus is, because if a fetus isn't a human being, if it doesn't have rights, conversation over, right? Abortion acceptable in all cases. I am conceding for purposes.
Conversation. Actually, that's an interesting point. I don't think the conversation would be.
I'm conceding.
Over.
Okay, fine.
It would be an interesting thing if somehow if human beings could be something else other than human beings.
I'm conceding.
That's not true, but I'm just saying if that were the case, that would be a really interesting thought experiment. But I don't think the conversation
of this discussion, I'm conceding that a fetus is human with rights. I'm saying that in my view, the woman's rights, and she does have rights. You can't zero them out and just say, well, she's got none, and the fetus has to be, the one entity.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that, and Kay did not say that, because he would never say something so terrible.
Okay, but that's the argument that you're making, right? That the fetus has. You're saying what? The fetus has equal rights to a woman?
Mike, I'm simply saying the fetus has the right to live. It has the right to life. In society, you have political issues. You have a public issue that deals with two people, and they both have rights. And there's competing interests, right? And I'm saying that there's not enough justification. There's not enough sauce, right, to say let's off that other person. That's all I'm saying, man. I'm not saying that somebody doesn't have rights. I'm not trying to take your rights away. I'm just trying to protect children. What?
A fetus is not a person, a legal person.
Yeah, it's not a legal person yet, but it will be once we get this legislation through.
What legislation?
When we have legislation that acknowledges that all human beings ought to be protected, which should be a simple fact in the United States of America, if we want to be moral and good, they will be legal persons.
Let me ask you this. So you've got a lot of allies in the country. You've got a lot of allies in the Supreme Court. Now you've read
I don't, but I can't call up Clarence Thomas, even though I want to. The guy's a legend.
Fair enough. Have you read Dobbs?
I've read through Dobbs, yes.
Okay,
I haven't briefed it.
So you would, not even Dobbs, with its conservative majority, which struck down Roe, held that a fetus is a legal person. There have been many opportunities.
Well, they didn't answer the question as
correct. But why do you think that hasn't happened? Okay, so I live in New York.
Because there's a conservative vision here. There is. The reason that hasn't happened is because we have real conservatives like myself, classical conservatives from the school of Edmund Burke, right? From related heavily then to John Adams, if you want the American view of kind of Burke's ideologies, maybe a little further with some of his thoughts on natural aristocracy. But then we have kind of these, as Michael Knowles would say, these squishier conservatives, and they don't believe that we should assert that type of power at the federal level and do things like, ban abortion, for example, like stop the slaughter of innocent children. I disagree with those conservatives.
Okay, so
the other thing to understand too is that there has been a push to keep things more localized. And it's always been an interest of Southerners from, Southern conservatives from, what is his name, John Randolph to now, to keep things localized and in just your small communities, because that's what they really care about. Because in the South, they've always been big agriculture centers, and they've had smaller communities. So naturally, right, they care about that politics more than us Northerners in New York, Chicago. We care more about the cities. So they have a different conservative vision there. They believe stronger in localized government. Right. I'm a different type of conservative. I'm more of the classical sense, where I will say, kind of like the Federalists in this country, we can assert some power to do what is objectively good. And that's okay, and that's normal.
Would you say that abortion is murder? Is that your stance?
Of course it is, Mike.
Listen, okay, so let's just have, would you agree that, so you would not agree that abortion is permissible pre-viability?
I would not agree that abortion is, I wouldn't.
Okay, fine, very well.
A kid, man.
So
we don't do that.
Here in New York, listen, New York recognizes a right to abortion pre-viability. So are you proposing that the legislature in New York is just filled with legislating child murderers? Did they just get it wrong? They just don't see what you see? What
they've gotten it wrong. They've gotten it wrong, man. They're allowing something that's not good. They've gotten it wrong, and that's
you don't think that the law that was enacted was passed as a result of discussion of these various very complicated issues, and they just simply
that's another interesting point.
And it's so simple.
Yeah, sure. I know where you're going, and I hear what you're saying.
More complicated than that?
Yeah. So statesmen, actually, in this country, not really that long ago, used to be trained in philosophy. They used to know their history, which many politicians today don't know. They used to have actually pretty good argumentation. They used to not just be puppets with rhetoric. And so if issues like this would have been fought on in a manner that they would pull from all these sources of knowledge, they would say, well, look at what we did historically, right? Look at what has been built, right? We're not just beasts wandering around that are blind. We have a path that we have followed, and we can look back and say, oh, okay, like at some point we had the Magna Carta, and at some point, states started popping up, and this and that, and this is how things happen. And also, we have a way to understand the science of thought. And so statesmen would have understood that too. In the modern age, we forget that. In the modern age, our politicians don't really have that. They're just kind of puppets that just speak and defend their sides. So when you ask me, now to the question about New York, when you ask me, did they fully think through the abortion issue in the New York legislature? I don't know the specifics, but I'm going to say no, because our politicians nowadays.
How can you say no if you don't know the specifics?
They don't. They are not. They're not trained in the way we used to be, and they don't pull from all sources of knowledge. So no, they did not fully think through it.
Okay, but if you haven't read the legislative history, if you don't know the specifics, how can you conclude as to what they reviewed, what they considered?
Dude, I guarantee you, if you talk to any Democrat person in Congress right now, 99.9% of them. Or if you talk to any Democrat senator, 99% of them, they are not going to have a good abortion argument. They will not. They are going to say it's a woman's. They're going to say it's a woman's rights. They're going to say it's reproductive health care. They're going to say that it's a matter of privacy. These are all not good abortion arguments, and we can engage on those arguments, and I can show you that they're not good. But you want to talk about all of these different political realities. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just say that a child is born, and for whatever reason, it's been determined medically that in order to survive, the baby, it's a baby now, it's been born, needs a blood transfusion, and the blood must come from the mother.
Sure. Give your blood.
Should the hypothetical question is, given those facts, should the mother be legally required to donate blood to her born child so that it may survive?
So the mother's blood is for the mother. Her body is for her as a person. So should it be legally obligated for her to give her blood? I don't think it would be a bad thing if it was. But am I out there arguing that it should be? No.
Okay, so how do you not see that as inconsistent? You've just given a fetus more rights than a born child.
I didn't, though. So I don't know where you think that's going to go, because here's the deal, right? If a mother had to give her kid blood or an organ to survive, that's not bad. That actually would be good
I'm
of
not
her
asking
to
about whether it's
do.
bad. I'm asking if
I haven't
you would
taken a
ban it
political
or
or a legal
require it by
stance
law.
on that, whether or not I would enforce that, but that's not the same thing as giving yourself or giving your resources to your child, right? Your actual sustaining the child's life. That's a simple obligation that's actually really good for society and something that we really should protect. And it's also not the same thing as going in and offing a kid, because a kid has its own purpose too.
Well, you keep using that phrase "offing a kid," but the question is really, what are the woman's rights relative to the rights of the fetus? That's the crux of the question, the crux of the debate, right?
Yeah,
You
and we've
can't
already
just
answered that.
focus on
I've
the
already
fetus.
answered that. Did you take issue with my answer?
Okay, in my hypothetical, let's just say the child is born. Now it needs a kidney, or it needs a kidney tissue from the mother. If it doesn't get the kidney tissue from the mother, it will die. Are you going to advocate for a law that would require the mother to donate part of her kidney tissue so that her baby may live?
Sorry, someone just messaged me. So would I force the mother to donate her kidney tissue?
Yes, to the baby now. It's a baby. It's a born child, so that the child may live.
I don't know if I would force her to donate her kidney tissue,
Why
but
not?
if we did, it wouldn't be a bad thing.
Well, okay, is that a yes? You would force the mother to do that?
I don't know. I think that's actually a good thing to do. And if mothers had to give up their kidneys to sustain their child's life, I don't think that's a bad thing to do.
I'm not asking if it's a bad thing to do morally.
Yeah, and I haven't taken a stance on that. I don't know if I would legislate that. But if we did legislate it, I'm just letting you know that would not be an inherently bad thing to do. That would actually be good and selfless, and that's what society should be about.
But if you're not prepared to legally obligate the mother to do that for her born child, do you not see that as being inconsistent with requiring her to give her body up or part of her body up for a fetus? Again, you've given more rights to a fetus than a born child.
No, I haven't. I haven't actually done that.
You're not calling to...
The fetus has the right to exist, and the mother has the right to exist. There's not government...
The baby in
politics...
my hypothetical has the right to exist, right?
Politics is not just an abstraction that works every single time, right? You can have an idea, like, for example, that all humans have a right to live, but that doesn't mean that all humans will always have that right to live. There are situations where we might actually encourage capital punishment, right? Somebody might go around and terrorize the whole town, and now, well, we have to put them down, right? And in that case, we might justify it. So each of these cases are different, right? I can give you my basic principles that I pull from, which are that all humans are worth protecting and they have a right to live. But now going back to conservative thought, being a conservative is not being a person of abstractions. It's actually looking at different situations and utilizing, again, all those sources of knowledge. And so if you ask me, would I support mothers giving their kidneys or blood to their children? Yes. I mean, would I make it that...
I'm not asking if you would support it.
Legislated, maybe. I don't know. Not right now.
Impose the same restrictions that you're seeking to impose on a mother who has a fetus in utero. I'm just curious as to why the. I'm just curious as to the basis for the focus.
Mike, what is your? Let me ask you a question now, more philosophical.
Sure.
Cicero coined the term summum bonum.
Oh, please don't question me about Greek philosophers. I'm not going to know the answers.
I'm just giving you some history. It might be good for you to learn a bit about that. Bishop Barron uses that term a lot, and I like using it as well. It's this idea of a highest good, that all people have a highest good that they're working towards. If I asked you, Mike, in society, in your inner life, what is your highest good?
My highest good?
Yeah, that your life is ordered to.
Oh, that's a...
What's the greatest good in your life?
Well, to love and protect my family.
Okay, so your greatest good is to love and protect your family. And you're worried about a woman being required to sustain the life of her child in the womb. How do you get there? If that is how you view the world, that your greatest good is to love and protect your family, what are you worried about in the case of pregnancy?
Well, I'm concerned about people's rights being upheld and enforced and exercised.
Okay, I'm concerned about that too to some extent. But is that what society is all about? Is society about holding so tight to abstractions of liberty, right, that we're not even going to agree on? holding so tight to this idea that you have an absolute right to do whatever you want, an idea that really did not come about until late 1700s during the French Revolution. Is society about giving all of ourselves to that? Or is society about doing what is just, what is good, and is it natural, at least from your perspective of the world, to say it is both just and good for the mother to sustain the life of her child?
It depends on the circumstances.
So there are situations where it would not be good for the mother to sustain the life of her child. That's what you're saying.
There are situations where it wouldn't be good for a mother to sustain the life of her child. I'm not sure what you're getting at.
I think that let me make this statement. I think that it is always good for a mother to put her child as a high interest in her life. That she, as a mother, should actually love her child, and she should will the good of her child, and that is totally okay to enforce through the laws. I understand it's a very liberal perspective that we have to literally bend our knee and bow our heads to culture, but that is not how it works, and that's not how it has worked throughout all of history, right? The law actually enforces things, and it forms the culture, and I don't think that we should write laws that now on this sub point, but still an important one, encourage women to off their kids. That's not good to me. That's not useful. Why are we doing that?
It may or may not be, depending on the circumstances. I would say that if a woman gets to the point where she feels that her only option, or one option that she's seriously considering, is to have an abortion, which is, what I understand, it's not a fun procedure. It's not a pleasant procedure. It's a medical procedure that is, it's not something to be taken lightly. If she's considering doing that, she is at the point where she is effectively at her last resort, experiencing her last resort, and bringing the government and its punishment and enforcement mechanisms into that picture.
Right. If it's literally medically necessary, she can get an abortion. I'm talking about cases where it wouldn't be justified to offer a kid, and there's no case outside of medical necessity that justifies offing your kid.
Can you think of one situation outside the context of pregnancy which requires a mother or an adult human being or a human being to donate their body in the way a pregnant woman does with her?
Not in the exact way, because pregnancy is very unique, but I can think of children outside of the womb and parents being literally obligated to care for those children, yes. Which you are, in a way, if we now want to talk about principles, you do, when you care for a child, you have to give yourself to that child, right? I've seen it when my brother had his little one growing up, or, when she was very little. Still now, but, it doesn't matter what you want. That baby starts crying at 3 a.m. You got to get up and shake, do whatever you do with babies. You got to shake them a bit. You got to give them some food, or, change.
Well, that's a very different situation
my point is, though, you have to give yourself to your child, and we all think about it this way, and we all know this is good. We all say, that's fine. You have to take care of your child. But when it comes to in the womb, you say, well, you don't have to give yourself to your child. That's crazy.
Well,
no.
there are a number of ways in which a fetus differs from a born child. There are 3 exact ways. 1, the fetus is inside the mother. 2, it's physically attached to the mother. And 3, it is dependent exclusively on the mother. And I've heard all the arguments, if you don't want to,
the first 2 are just descriptions of
if you don't want to give birth because of financial reasons, then should you be able to kill your 4-year-old who's also costing you a ton of money? Obviously not. But that overlooks the fundamental distinction between a fetus and a born child. Those three factors that I mentioned.
And what is that fundamental difference?
Well, 1, that the fetus is inside the mother. 2, physically attached to the mother.
And why does any of that
3,
matter when
exclusively dependent on the mother.
You were talking about pregnancy, which is a unique situation in society.
I'd say comparable to nothing.
It's a common situation, but there's not a identical one-on-one that we can compare it to. And you're describing to me the descriptors of the situation, and then you're telling me that I can't bring in situations outside of the womb. So how do I understand pregnancy then? If it's even possible, which I think you would admit this, if it is even possible for the mother to have an obligation to her child inside the womb, how do I even understand that obligation if I'm not willing to look outside of the womb and consider when a child is just born, right? You totally you cut off any way to look at this issue correctly, I feel like.
Well, you've just described why pregnancy is unique among all human experiences and why we can't apply principles like murder to it. Why we can't say simply that abortion is murder.
That yes, it is unique, but we have to be able to understand it somehow. How do we understand it at all then? Right? If you can't pull from outside of the womb, how do you get your abstractions about absolute rights to yourself? Where do those come from? Right? Not everybody's pregnant. Only women can get pregnant, and they're not pregnant all the time. So how are you even getting your ideas? You can see how this is problematic. It doesn't make any sense what you're saying.
Well, I would say that a born person. I mean, the fundamental lens through which I view this issue is that a born person has rights that will, in all cases, exceed the rights of a fetus.
I understand you
your
think
position
that,
is
but
the
you have not
converse.
substantiated that to us.
Well, but I would argue that you haven't substantiated the converse, and you bear the burden here because you're trying to ban abortion.
Yes, I think it's wrong to off your kid.
You think it's wrong. That's not a justification. That's a thought.
Justified to off your kid because the kid has done nothing wrong. It is a human being that has committed no crime. It is a human being that is literally developing where it ought to be. And the icing on the cake is that a good society ought not off their own kids. I don't see that as good. If you believe that there are cases where we should off our own kids and we scratch that up as good, I disagree with that principle.
Well, I'm not saying we ought to unalive our kids. I never said
you
that.
are.
No,
you are. This is the problem with your argument.
Pro-abortion.
You are.
Those are fundamentally
when you are
different
pro-choice, you are pro-abortion, and you are pro-offing our own kids. You think that on the basis of some principles, right? That some enlightened people came up with. You believe that you can. You is it
no
is
more
just
than saying pro-life is pro-woman enslavement.
I disagree.
Right.
I disagree.
We're at fundamental odds here. That's the thing. I mean, I asked you to
because
your position, and you just said
we think about the world differently. We think about the world differently, but I think we actually might have more similarities if you allow them to exist.
Perhaps.
But Mike, let me move on because we're just going in circles now, or we're about to.
All right, good chat.
Yeah, see you later, man.
Bye.
Sorry, Kay, I sucked up all the air there. My bad.
No, you're good, man. I was just listening that whole time, listening to you guys talk. So
yeah. All right, you want to do one more, man?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, dope. Well, we got a lot of people in here. Maybe we'll see how long the phone lasts. Should we bring JJ back up? What do you think, chat? Bring JJ back up? Someone, Honey said, listening. Yo, Honey, relax.
No, that's
Honey
crazy.
said no. Gummy Bear said no. Jason said no. Domain Freedom said yes. Royal said
How about
me.
let's run a poll. Let's run a poll. And
yeah, Honey, can you run a poll for us? Guys, while Honey runs that poll, if you wouldn't mind liking the live, I appreciate the support. I know Kay does as well. And, we have the Discord server, so we'd love to have you in there as well. Great way to support me, and interact with Kay, Honey, and myself. And drop Kay a follow, drop Honey a follow. Honey's TikTok is in my link tree. For comical reasons, yes. The problem is JJ is going to come up, and he's going to say, well, I'm gay. Nobody clip that I just said that. That's going to be You know what? I just got to stop. I'm going to stop. Honey, don't clip that.
Somebody definitely just clipped that, bro.
Well, now I'm screwed.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
Anyway. Yeah.
Next thing you see, clips circling around.
Am I going to jail? All right. What's the
their wives for far more than just sex?
That's not really true. Now, hold on. Now, coming
ask
from
her what the
woman,
4B movement is.
Now, coming from a woman who was divorced once because of that same BS. Like at first, me and him we're totally in sync with each other when it comes to I'm going to do my thing, you're going to do your thing. We're both going to make money, right? Okay. But as soon as I get pregnant, because I have my shit. I'm sorry, my
your stuff.
Live. I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
I have my stuff snipped.
So it's not a parasite. That's wrong.
How is it not? It can't live without the host.
Neither can newborn babies. Are they parasites?
Kinda.
So you think that newborn babies are parasites? That's fine. Whatever you want to refer to it, there's a true statement about what that child is, right? That's why mothers don't say that they're pregnant with parasites or clumps of stones. Mothers don't say that.
I did, but
I'm sure that when you were pregnant, you didn't. When you announced the fact that you were pregnant, I'm sure you didn't tell your friends and your family members that you were pregnant with a parasite, right? So that's fine if you want to refer to it that way. But yeah, none of this is going to be justificatory reason for you to unalive your own children in the womb.
So if both of us were safe and both of us took precautions to not have children, and we ended up pregnant, or I ended up pregnant, whether he was in the picture or not, I ended up pregnant anyways. That wouldn't justify, hey, like my mental well-being and my physical well-being. I know that I am not ready for another child.
Bro, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Okay. So let's say James lives in a really expensive house, right? And I come around with my little son. Okay. I don't have a son, but I'm saying if I did, me and my son are playing baseball. Okay. And I tell my son, hey, don't swing too hard. We're going to wrap the ball in the baseball bat with some cloth just to make sure in case that I do hit one of James's windows. But in the event that I do end up hitting James's window, James takes me to court. He says, you have to pay. You're the one that's responsible for this broken
I'm so
window.
sorry for interrupting you. Daughter of King, both of my kids are in bed, so nobody heard me say that.
Okay, that's fine.
Go ahead. No, I was just interrupting you to answer that one. Go ahead, baby.
So then James takes me to court, and we're sitting in the courtroom, and I'm telling the judge, man, you know what? I can't handle this. I don't know what I'm gonna do. My mental is messed up, man. Like, you can't hold me responsible for this. What's the judge gonna say to me?
That's a little bit different, though, is it?
Black card to James now. That's a little bit. Wait, what? What was
that? A little bit. No, hold on. No. Hold on. Think about it this way. So there's a common reoccurrence of you should be safe with sex, right?
Wait. Hold on.
Staying abstinent.
Do you understand? I want you to understand. Do you know what the point of that analogy was?
I sure do.
What? Can you tell me what it is? What was I trying to get at?
It was a basic stay abstinent. You don't want it, don't pitch it, right?
No, not really. It's pretty much just to say that you're still responsible for actions, even if you take precautions. Just because you took precautions and something happens as a result of your actions doesn't exempt you or absolve you from responsibility.
But my only issue on that one is it seems to be more faced towards women. Where do men have to take their own actions?
Wait, what do
when
you expect?
do men have to get clipped?
What do you expect? What do you expect men to do? Men can't get pregnant. The only
but they can get clipped.
Okay, men getting clipped is going to solve what exactly?
The same way that I got clipped solved what exactly?
Yeah, wait. If a man gets clipped, that's preventing him from getting a woman pregnant, correct?
Exactly.
And when a woman gets
can
an
only
abortion,
get pregnant once a year. How many times can a man get a woman pregnant?
And when a woman gets an abortion, what is happening there? Is she preventing?
She doesn't want to have it.
No.
Actually, not drunk. I'm stoned. I'll say that one. I've been smoking, but
You answer the question.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was paying attention to the comments. Ask it again.
When a woman gets an abortion, you already said that when a man gets snipped, that's to prevent pregnancy. When a woman gets an abortion, what happens?
It's to prevent the birth.
This gets in gravy.
The birth isn't being prevented, right? She's ending a human life.
Is she? Because honestly, the life is not being formed.
Gay.
There is no consciousness. There is no life there.
Okay. Before you tackle that point, I just want to ask, is there anything you want to say to me?
I'm going to hand over my black card to James now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Right.
No, that's crazy, man.
Go ahead, Kay. Go ahead.
But so, Brooke, I guess the overarching point that I'm trying to get you to understand is that when men get snipped, right, that doesn't end a separate human organism.
Well, considering that two women
hold on. It's fine. Unlike in the cases of abortion, that does end the life of a separate human organism. So if you want to get snipped and you want to prevent yourself from being able to have kids, whatever, that's fine. Your prerogative. But in the event that a kid does come around or a human life does come around, just don't kill it. That's all we're saying.
Now, but if I already took, okay, so here is the double negative there. So if I say as a woman, I have taken the proper precautions to not get pregnant. But I also say as a woman, as a separate, no, hold on, that was the wrong way. Okay, so as a separate woman, they say they haven't taken any prerogative to not get pregnant. Either way, the woman is wrong.
Wait, what? Say that one more time.
I'm so sorry. Give me 1 second. Yes, gorgeous.
Is that the kid that you didn't want that you're talking to?
Shh.
I'll be right back.
No, there's a difference because you're right to a certain extent. However, I took my responsibility and I understood what was happening. And I was married at the time of having her.
Okay.
I was married and stable. Me and him both were making 6 figures a year.
Okay, that's fantastic.
So I thought that we were going to last.
Okay.
So when I decided to keep her, when I decided that our lives would be better with her, I thought that at the end of the day, we would be okay.
And if
now,
you hadn't,
granted, we are still okay. She is still happy, healthy, and energetic. And she is smart as shit.
And so if you hadn't decided that your life was not beneficial for a child to be
then I would be
incorporated.
raising a
Hold
child.
on. I was still in the middle of a sentence, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, baby.
So if you hadn't determined that your life was going to be suitable enough for a third person to be involved in the picture, let's just say instead of making 6 figures, you only made 40K a year or 30K a year, right? You were suffering from mental health crisis, or maybe you were having some economic instability, you were struggling to pay the bill, something like this. Do you think that that is going to be ample justification to have unalived that 4-year-old inside your house right now?
But she wasn't 4 at the time. She was an embryo that didn't have any consciousness or any life to her.
That's not what I asked.
It is. Because
no, it's not.
At the time of her birth, she was not a 4-year-old. She was an embryo.
So what I'm saying is, if you had deemed that that child in your room right now, at the moment of her inception, if her life wasn't going to fit into your life at the time,
rows and embryos not alive. They don't have a consciousness.
Do you think, hold on, I want you to know something. That child in your room right now is the same human being that it was at the moment of conception. She or he is just at a later stage in development. So I'm asking you, and I want you to be honest with me. Can you look at that child in the face and tell them that at the moment they came into existence, if they weren't suitable enough for your lifestyle at the time, that would have been ample justification to remove that child from existence?
Yes.
Can you look at your daughter and say that?
Yes.
You can look at your child and say that.
Absolutely.
That if your life wasn't, you can look at them and say, you don't fit into my life, so you got to go.
Now, hold on. The way you phrase that sounds like a full-grown child. But what I'm giving up at the time would not be a full-grown child. Now, my eldest, she already knows because me and her have already talked. She was going to be adopted. My eldest was going to be adopted because I was raped in order to have her. So
how did that answer my question?
Me and her have already talked because she didn't feel like, and I'm going to be 110% honest, my eldest didn't feel like she was not accepted, and that's not the word I'm looking for. What's the word I'm looking for? She didn't feel like she was existing in this world. And I said, well, why not? It all boils down to me and her talking about why she doesn't have a father and why I am the only person in her life. And
But can I ask you a question?
I did explain it to her. Hey, I was raped. You came about and I decided not to end you because I didn't have the right.
It's getting up. Let me ask you a question. Is that okay?
Give me 2.5 seconds and absolutely you can ask me a question.
Okay. I'm going to hand over my black card to you, James.
Okay, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, so let's say theoretically that...
No, baby, I didn't tell this to my 4-year-old. I told this to my 11-year-old.
You didn't even listen, right?
No,
So
I
let's
was answering a comment.
Okay, that's cool. Let's say that theoretically, okay, that your child was the same exact child in the way your child is now, however, whatever stage of development that they're in, it was the same child at the moment of conception. Would you be able to tell them that same thing? They had the brain, they had the sentience, they had all the whatever
They
qualifiers that
don't.
you want to say. That's why I said theoretically. So if it was possible that they
But we're
had
not
all
talking about
those.
theoretics. We're talking about
Okay,
literal.
I'm asking you a question to test your principle. Okay, so let's say theoretically that was possible, that they had all the necessary brain parts, the brain function, the sentience, capability for experience, and so on and so forth. It's still going to be tough. The pregnancy is still going to be hard. You still have to go through all the stuff that comes with pregnancy, except they have the brain, the consciousness, the experience, all those things. And let's make it even more interesting. Let's say you could talk to that fetus. Let's say you could talk to them and they could talk back to you. Would you be able to tell them, yeah, you don't fit into my life right now. So sorry, you got to go.
But here's the problem. You're comparing a living thing to not a living thing. The majority of abortions happen before the fetus even has consciousness. So what we're talking about here is not about me taking a full-formed baby and explaining this to them and then killing them. What we're talking about is a clump of cells.
Can you engage in a hypothetical?
No, because this isn't hypothetical. This is real life.
Do you know what the purpose of hypotheticals and debates are?
No, you're right, Gummy Bear. They don't have a consciousness.
If you read the comment one more time in the middle of our conversation, I'm going to have to drop you. That's very disrespectful. Okay?
That's terrible for you.
Okay. Are you going to read a comment again, or are you going to have to be dropped and bring the next guest up?
Look, however you want to despise it, but at the same time, if people
Wait, however you want to despise it.
Look,
What?
I used the wrong word. That's fair. That's fair. I used the wrong
Okay,
word.
however you want to despise it, man. Whatever. Despise it there, despise it here, despise it everywhere. Dr. Seuss, despise.
That's fair. I'll take that one. I used the wrong words. But when somebody tags my name, like, I'm going to answer it. However, when it comes, I'm still going to answer your question, sweetheart. That has nothing to do with whether I answer a comment or not.
Right. Then answer the question.
I am, but you haven't stopped talking. So
No,
here's
I
the
haven't.
problem. Okay, so you are comparing a living human being. You are comparing my 11-year-old coming up to me, talking to me about these things, to an organism that has no conscious, no real ability to understand, no ability to exist outside of my womb.
What if
If
your
it
daughter was
has
born?
no ability to exist outside of my womb, it's a parasite in general.
Okay. What if do you have a daughter or a son? Your 3-year-old.
I have 2 daughters.
What if your daughter was born in a coma?
And
Okay. She was born in a coma. She has
she
no
has no brain activity.
She has no past experiences and she has minimal brain activity. What then?
Pull the plug.
Pull the plug.
When
Let's
it
just say
comes
that the
down to it,
doctor,
what kind of life is she living?
yeah, let's say the doctor told you that she was gonna be fine in a day.
Okay, don't pull the plug.
What
I
about
already
2
gave
hours?
birth to her. I already made the decision to keep her. So
Okay,
if
what
she
if
has
the
brain
doctor?
activity and if she's going to be fine within 24 to 48 hours, fine, so be it.
Okay, what
However,
about what if it was a week?
that's okay.
What if it was 3 months?
Okay.
What if it was 9 months?
Okay.
Okay, so you're fine with saying that
But
we
she still has
shouldn't.
brain activity throughout those
Hold
9
on.
months.
Hold on. You're saying that it's fine that we shouldn't take this life because we have knowledge that they're gonna
Because she's
regain.
already been born and outside of my
She's gonna,
womb.
that she's gonna gain something in the future in 9 months.
Now, let me put this quoted to you here. Let's put real life scenarios to you here.
That's why.
Have a good one.
Okay, I gotta end pretty quick here, but I just want to say, guys, if you're not in the Discord server, please join the Discord server. Hit the top left, go to my TikTok page, hit the link, join the Discord server. It's a great way to support me. It's a great way to communicate with me, Kay, and Honey, and all of the other people that talk about this issue on this app.